But I can't let you can't make a comment.
Without pulling it?
I tried that once, that happened once to me before.
Okay,
So
then
we
pull it and then we can vote on it. I'm not gonna hold it up because we've already approved it.
Okay, K-Bev will work on that.
K-Bev is ready?
No, I think that Mary needs to talk, right?
papers out of the way.
Sorry.
You know what you can do for me? Throw this in the garbage.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Are you a former student too?
Yeah.
I thought I recognized you.
Nor.
Huh?
I'm Nor.
Oh, of course.
Very thankful that we use agenda online for our agendas, because I was looking at some other districts that have student board members that I knew, and their like agendas are impossible to find in some other program that like 3 of them use, and I was like,
I still think there should be better out there.
maybe we could find yeah.
Can I please have your thumb?
Some are really good. Like,
What do you need?
Your thumb.
You want, I have to unlock it?
But some
Yes.
of them is like, if you, let's say you just want, like, a community member wants to tune in for a certain vote, if you click on the agenda, you know, when it's over.
9:30, 9:45, something like that would be good.
Video.
I don't know, in that time frame. Is it busy tomorrow at that time of morning?
I've seen that.
Or there's also another thing. It's
Let's do 9:45.
if they put
Okay.
timestamps
Is it
in
open?
the video description.
Yes.
And I'll be at the
It'll
district
segment
office.
the
I'll park my
bar
car near
on
the
YouTube
district
so you can
office
find
and walk
exactly
over.
where you need to go. So if
Did
they're
you
able
use
to-
your?
Yes, if they're able to segment it.
We used your
and
district
write
account,
what
right?
it is and then
Yeah.
write a timestamp for it within
think
that view, then it'll set. Yeah, no, it's a very cool feature. It's pretty new.
Pretty much the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
but on
So
so
And do
you
you
can
remember
keep
what
the
this
same
was?
YouTube
We needed
format, we can
a
keep our agendas over
capital
here,
letter.
but
One,
it'll segment it so you can
capital
even have
B,
it all the way down to
U,
individual
T,
votes, or you
T,
can have
E,
it in
R,
sections.
1,
Yeah.
somebody just wants to tune into a
C,
certain
U,
section.
P,
Yeah, it makes sense.
1,
That's great to know that.
And we needed the
and then
No, I can
the,
talk
the,
to
as the,
Steve about that later.
exclamation point.
No, it's a cool
Okay.
feature. I don't know how well it works on like uploaded live streams like we do, but I know that when you're uploading
okay,
your own video,
it's
if you put it
1,
in there,
capital
it'll
B, U, T,
segment
T,
it.
E. I think I hit the wrong one just now.
Really helpful, you know?
1,
I'm just
capital
worried
B,
everyone's
Table of
listening.
contents.
I'll show you on
capital B, U, T, T,
the
E,
number
R,
one
1,
place I usually see it is on like music
Okay,
I listen to. I listen to a lot of
Hey
classical
guys.
music, and
1,
they'll segment like
and
movies.
It's almost 8:50. I'm sorry. It's almost 5:15. Can we get started?
Maybe this one doesn't have.
We'll try again after the meeting.
okay.
Okay.
I don't know what it could be.
The description, they can put the timestamps, and then up here it like sometimes
Oh, you know
shows
what?
you where exactly those timestamps are, and it gives you
Did
the
he
name
use
of
the
the
one with Webster?
Love that.
Maybe. Okay. Can I keep? Oh, can you just cut off the bottom of that and I'll take it?
I don't know if that's the one I used or not.
Is Mary ready? Thank you. Okay.
I can't, unless you did it on a, different website, of a different,
I'll check the email. That's a good idea.
I think it might be under 936 or, yeah, I think it might be under 936.
Okay.
Let me check.
I'll check.
Okay. You know, that's a
You're
Gmail.
right.
Huh?
You're right.
Is
You're
that right?
Yep.
Are we ready?
Open.
Count?
Okay.
They're waiting for Mrs. Wells. So we think it's, can you write down that first password?
No. Okay.
Thank you.
I have 3 different email addresses, Rebecca.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Well, the 936 is the newest. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Beverly Hills Unified School District's Board of Education meeting. Today being August 24th, the time being 5:18. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I would like to note for the record that Mr. Margot and Miss Tristan Walker-Schumann are attending the meeting by virtually, and that the rest of the board is present. And with that, I would like to ask if Mr. Ken Haas, a Director of Maintenance and Operations, would please be so kind as to lead us in the flag salute.
Please stand and place the flag. Raise over your heart. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to get a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Margot. Do I have a second? Who is the second? Mrs. Tristan Walker-Schumann, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Dr. Breggy, do you have anything from closed session that you need to report?
President Marcus, there was no action in closed session.
Thank you very much. And so that brings us now to one of my favorite parts of the program, is when we recognize people or programs and teachers and students. And tonight we have a very special recognition, and I'm going to turn it back to you, Dr. Breggy.
Thank you. And I'd like to start us off by recognizing two of our community members that have been longstanding community members on our finance committee. So if you will please unmute yourself and just wave so that you could be recognized. Colleen Nur and Marilyn Gallup. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you both very much for your long-term service on the Finance Committee. I know that if you could just raise your certificates so that we can maybe get a quick picture, or I do want to make sure that you are recognized virtually. Wish it was in person. The work and service involved with the Finance Committee is a labor of love for sure. It's a lot of information that most community members would need to get a dictionary and just to understand the terminology and what we do in our school district and all of the state guidelines and regulations. I would like to, as I think back to when I started 5 years ago, the contribution that both of you made to our Finance Committee to start to take it into a different direction, where we started to look at actual projects and things that would impact our school district and help provide information to our Board of Education to make data-influenced decisions. And that started like 5 years ago, and I know that ever since then it's becoming stronger each year. And I both want to just thank you very much for your service and have an opportunity for our Board of Education to recognize you.
Perhaps they'd like to say a word. Mrs. Nur?
I do have some comments, if I may. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
I enjoyed being on the committee. I was never bored. I learned a lot. It was challenging, and it was still a privilege. I wanted to thank, when I started, it's hard to imagine, 7 years ago, Mel Spitz, Herb Young, Bob Sternshine, Terry White, Marty Franks. A college education right there. I want to thank Joe Savior, who has most recently been my SAGE advisor. He's been there consistently to help me. I wanted to acknowledge both Dr. Brady and Wade. Through those 7 years, there are things that I would like to note that I remember that we accomplished, one of which is being the upgrading and the professional administration that we've moved into. I really appreciated that, particularly Wade. I would like to acknowledge that we started on our finance committee, the OPEB trust, which I think has been a particularly important movement. We also have advocated for someone to communicate with the community as a whole, away from just a school, and that's been done. We brought in and recommended a professional negotiator to work with the teachers union. Yay. So we've really improved the professional atmosphere and the monitoring and the recording of the administrative office, and I feel very proud of that. I have some continued concerns. I'm concerned about continuing the funding of the OPEB. That's number one. Number two, it concerns me that so much of our budget goes to special education, and we're looking in that direction. I hope you'll continue to monitor that. We continue to spend an awful lot of money on legal representation. That bothers me. I wanted to acknowledge that Noah has been on the board the entire 7 years that I've been serving on the committee. And most importantly, I wanted to give a very heartfelt thank you and appreciation to Shamia Moore. Shamia made my job as a chairman so much easier and so much a pleasure, and I would like to acknowledge her contribution for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Thanks very much. Mrs. Gallup. You're muted, Marilyn. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Colleen did a wonderful job enumerating the tasks we on the Finance Committee undertook and our accomplishments, so I'm not going to repeat them. I would just like to say that it was both a privilege and a pleasure to serve on the Finance Committee for 8 years. And I want to thank my fellow committee members, as well as the staff who did so much and gave us so much support. Your efforts really are greatly appreciated. Like Colleen, I also have some concerns for the future. And being the Finance Committee, of course, OPEBs are at the top of the list. I cannot stress too much the importance of continuing to fund this. I think that Laura has done some wonderful things with special ed. And I would also like to say, though, that I think we can make greater efforts there. I know that there are so many state mandates and things that are required of us, but I hope that we can work on trying to have so much of our budget taken up with this. I also hope that the present committee will take a harder look at the number of people who are hired who are not what I call so much boots on the ground. By that I mean hires in the district office. If you look at, and Colleen will remember the name of the report, I don't, that compares us to other districts as to the number of people we have hired in these positions. Beverly Hills is so over in that area. I would hope that we could cut back a bit in that area. Colleen, do you remember the name of the report? No, you can't remember it either. But it was a report where comparisons are done. They're comparing Beverly Hills in terms of numbers of administrators, numbers of students, across the board. And we had discussed the fact that Beverly Hills is so disproportionate to other districts in terms of the number of administrators we have, not at schools, but from the district office. So I would hope that the present committee will take a look at that. And again, I want to say what a pleasure and a privilege this has been, and thank all of you for your support.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you very much. Let's go around the ring and see if anybody has any comments. It so happens tonight, Mr. Eli, Raymer, that you're first up.
While I have not been in this position too long and I haven't had too much contact with you, I do know it takes a very special kind of person to take their free time to and put it towards the benefit of our school district and our students. So I do want to thank you both for the time that you spent on this committee and the time you spent making our district as great as it can be. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raymer. Dr. Stern.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for your service and for the insights you provided just now. I really listened to those, and thank you just so much, and you will have a continuing legacy for all the work that you have done.
Mrs. Wells. Oh, man, I'm sorry, Mr. Margot.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Colleen. The work that the Finance Committee has done has really contributed to a lot of the success in writing our finances in the district, and we will continue to heed their words greatly. Don't tell the other committees this, but you guys are my favorite committee. Okay. Oh, wait, did I just say that in open meeting? Whoops, sorry.
Luckily, you're not here.
And we recorded it.
Thank you, Mr. Margot. Mrs. Wells.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to Colleen and to Marilyn as well. I really appreciate the work that you've done with the Finance Committee, and I can't thank you enough for volunteering your time. I think it's so vitally important for the school district to have committees such as the Finance Committee and to have volunteers such as yourselves to provide your expertise to support the district. So it's been great work that you've done, and it does set a great legacy for the district, and I can't thank you enough for your time that you have volunteered for us.
Thank you. Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
You guys are near and dear to my heart. I started coming to the Finance Committee when I was working on Future Focused. I spent a lot of time getting to know you individually and the issues that the Finance Committee works on, and then I've been on the committee myself for 2.5 years alongside both of you. You are amazing women. You are amazing human beings. You have so much that you have contributed and continue to contribute to our community. A lot of people don't know, Colleen, that you were part of the Title IX evolution. I think that is so remarkably special, especially as we celebrate this year the 50th anniversary of Title IX. Amazing. Your contributions from the finance perspective have just been monumental. And Marilyn, a lot of people don't know that you continue to substitute volunteer in the district as a teacher, in addition to all the contributions that you've made to the Finance Committee. So thank you both. You are remarkable women. We're so sorry that you can't continue to stay on the committee, but you have been just such amazing public servants in your role, advising and helping shepherd us to better times. I think 7 years ago, we were in a vastly different situation than we are now. So I thank you both for your endeavor and your commitment to getting us to a better place.
Well, I guess there's nothing left for me to say, except being last, I get to be the last person. I just like to talk about the dedication that you two ladies have given. 6 years, you've been volunteers, and it's been really a labor of love for you. And I'm going to miss you. It's too bad that the term limits are there, because I know if they could go on, you'd go on forever, as the song goes. So, again, thank you again for all your hard work. You heard the comments from the committee, the board, and I echo all those words. Again, thank you. And thank you for joining us tonight. Okay. So we now move to the public comment, and I have several people who wish to speak. I remind them that there'll be a 3-minute limit, and Dr. Breggy is keeping track of that. So when I call your name, please unmute yourself and you may begin. The first lady I have on the list is Marit Neiman. Would you please unmute yourself and go ahead? Marit?
Can you hear me? Is it possible for you to come back to me after a couple of people? I have to go and check on my son. I'm sorry.
Okay, sure. Oh, here's a good one I like. Former student, Dr. Selena Nadelman. Dr. Nadelman? You're muted. Good,
Yes,
thank you.
hello, hi.
Hello, Selena.
How are you? Okay, so I'm to read my public statement. 1 second. Which of course I missed. I'm going to just go this way and read it from here. Okay. So in an attempt to keep schools open for in-person learning and to mitigate the spread of and morbidity from COVID-19, I believe in vaccinating all those who are eligible. In addition, since the Delta variant is not only more transmissible, but also may show little to no symptoms in the previously vaccinated individuals, some sort of regular COVID testing should be implemented. This will allow best practices regarding contact tracing, quarantining, and prevention of outbreaks that could further jeopardize our in-person learning. That's what I wrote, basically. But I wanted to further talk about what I just read just now about the American Academy of Pediatrics. Some just numbers. I don't know if you guys know that the American Academy of Pediatrics cited about 94,000 new cases of COVID-19 in children at the end of August 5th, which more than doubled the case count from 2 weeks prior to that. And the op-ed that I read said that in children's that are hospitalized in children's hospitals, these are pediatric patients only. Half of them are too young to be vaccinated, and the rest are those that are unvaccinated. So the people who are getting actually hospitalized from the Delta variant are those who cannot be vaccinated or are not vaccinated. That's, I don't know if anybody has any questions or wants to talk about it, but I feel that the way that we can view this in a public health, parameter is by keeping everybody as safe as possible. And since we don't have medical treatments to treat COVID-19 as if we would treat another coronavirus, like a cold or other kinds of, adeno or rhinoviruses that cause colds, and we don't have these therapeutics just yet readily available, we have to do the next best thing, which is in our arsenal, and that is vaccination. And vaccination has been proven to be quite effective regarding not getting symptomatic disease or getting hospitalized. That's basically it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nadelman. Okay, next I have Arash Jacob. Arash, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. I'll go ahead and read my statement here. Hi, my name is Arash Jacob. I'm a father and former physician. I would first like to acknowledge those desiring vaccines and routine testing for our children, that I understand the desire and need to protect both young and old. I understand that one of the biggest fears is that our children may get severely sick, or God forbid, worse, or bring such illness home. I also want to acknowledge our concerned parents who don't want to prematurely vaccinate our children with a vaccine that, although just approved yesterday, has not had the standard 6 to 12 years of rigorous testing to mitigate harmful short or long-term effects to be proven generally safe. How many times have we been told that a certain drug is safe only for it to be pulled from the market years later after causing innumerable heart attacks, strokes, death, or other maladies. I point to the Great Barrington Declaration that is now signed by over 43,000 physicians worldwide, 800,000 people total, that advocates for focused protection of our elderly and at risk. Indeed, this is possible today with available drug protocols, including ivermectin and the such, both for prevention and treatment. Our youth and young continue to recover exceptionally well, attaining complete immunity that is now proving to be lasting and durable. In considering mandating the COVID-19 vaccine, it should be stressed that the vaccine is intended for the original virus and does not protect against its infection or transmission. Countries with early and high rates of vaccine adoption, such as Israel and others, are now showing breakouts of the Delta variant that appears to have bypassed the original vaccine, thereby rendering it now obsolete. Indeed, the COVID-19 virus is showing itself to be more flu-like in its behavior, already mutating. Therefore, I strongly request that the board wait for this vaccine's long-term efficacy and side effects to be more thoroughly studied before potentially prematurely mandating it for our children who have exceptionally high survival rates, low transmissibility rates, and higher risk of an adverse reaction versus benefit among the population. There is so much more to say, and I'm happy to sit one-on-one or in group to expound further, should the board or any of its members wish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Robin Ross, are you there, Robin? Robin? Hello, Robin?
I'm here.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
You can hear me, great. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you very much. I think you're going to get an echo here.
I just want to introduce myself. I'm a new parent to the district.
I'm sorry to
And
interrupt, Ms. Ross.
before I jump into,
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
you know what?
You're
Let
going
me
to
turn
need
the
to
video
turn
off. Hold on one second.
Can you wait 1 second, Miss Ross?
She needs to turn off her stream of the YouTube.
What does she need to turn off?
The YouTube stream.
You need to turn off the YouTube. We're getting a feedback.
I'm a new parent, and before I jump into my concerns, I just wanted, to applaud all of you for opening the schools without implementing more restrictive policies that were necessary. The kids truly are so happy to be back at school. I do request that in the event that the district implements a mandatory COVID-19 testing policy on a weekly basis, that you please have the testing company provide a saliva testing as an option. I have my reasons for believing in the safety over the swab, as I am suffering from a chronic condition in my nose that I believe was a direct result from the very first swab that I received in November of 2020, as well as when I was swabbed at the Beverly Hills High School this past Thursday, so that I could volunteer at the carnival at BV. Right afterwards, I had dime-sized bruises covering my entire body. And so I really understand that you may believe that the saliva test is less accurate, but I can attest to the fact that all testing is inaccurate, which is part of the problem. When our family got swabbed from different facilities for COVID in late December, every one of us tested negative, yet we were very sick with COVID and all the symptoms, and later tested positive for antibodies. If this cannot be done, I hope that you will allow testing from our own medical sources and provide us with the information that will be accepted. It was also my understanding that even if you had a vaccine, hello? Sorry, my daughter just called. Even if you had a vaccine and you were volunteering as a parent for the carnival, you still had to be COVID tested. Sorry, she keeps going. That you still had to be COVID tested because of the fact that you know that they're not accurate, and you know that you can transmit and contract the virus. In your consideration of mandatory COVID vaccines for all children, teachers, and administrators, I am pleading with you to not make any decisions anytime soon. There is way too much misinformation regarding the safety and effectiveness of the vaccines, and there are way more people dying or getting severely sick from them than being reported. There is no scientific evidence to justify mandating these shots, regardless of the situation with Pfizer vaccine getting approved. And although the pharmaceutical companies don't hold anybody liable, don't hold any liability, I am sure that the Beverly Hills Unified School District does not want to incur any more lawsuits. I had knowledge, if I had knowledge of this meeting early, I would have made an effort to speak out about the situation to more parents to give them the opportunity to also take a stand. I had I not connected with a friend.
Sorry,
I would not have
Miss
joined
Ross,
this meeting,
excuse
and
me.
It was only yesterday.
Miss
around
Ross,
3 p.m.
excuse me, your
I
3
hope
minutes,
to see
your
an
3 minutes.
email sent out from you to every parent at Beverly Hills Unified School District with a copy of the link for today's meeting and inviting them to speak or send you their questions and concerns regarding your plans and asking for their input, or maybe a parent survey.
Excuse me,
can
Miss
be
Ross,
implemented to
excuse me.
assist you with getting
Miss Ross,
trustworthy
excuse me.
community intake.
That's 3 minutes.
3 minutes, I have to,
Can I have
tell you
one
it's
more
3
thing to
minutes.
say?
yeah, 3
No,
minutes,
I'm
there was,
sorry.
the limit is 3
I am
minutes.
so confused as to why you're,
Mrs. Marcus, would you like me
Okay.
to read them?
I truly hope.
I
for
don't
a
have
great
that ability.
resolution.
Want me to?
Yes,
Thank you for your consideration.
okay, thank you, Miss Ross, I'm sorry, there's a 3-minute limit. Okay, next, I'm gonna go back to Mrs. Neiman if she's there. If not, I'll go on again. She said she had needed to attend to something. Is she back? No, okay, I'll go on again. Sigali Sabag. I hope I said that right. Sigali? Sigali?
Yeah, hi. I'm in the car, so I don't know if this way or this way is
Well,
better.
right the way you are now is the way I see you. It's good.
Okay, thank you. You can hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, statistically, the science has proven that COVID-19 has 99.8% recovery rate, children being the least affected by the virus. The Pfizer vaccine does not prevent contracting COVID, nor does it prevent spreading the virus. To the contrary, clinical studies are documented that there are and have been severe side effects to adults and children. According to the FDA, Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 mRNA vaccine adverse event reporting system, VAERS, cases of COVID-19 results in hospitalization or death. A vaccine with serious adverse side effects include multi-system inflammatory syndrome, MIS. On August 23, 2021, the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 mRNA vaccine has been reported to be FDA approved, but in the revised August 23, 2021 FDA report, the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 mRNA vaccine is still EUA, full emergency use authorization. The FDA states information is not yet available about potential long-term sequelae. I have been a mother for 32 years with children ranging from the age of 32 years old to 9 years old. I have 5 children. I have worked in the health industry for over 10 years. I am open-minded. Sorry. Can you see me? Oh my goodness. Okay, I am open-minded and investigate every information that I receive. In these unprecedented times, I believe that every family must do what they feel is best for their family, and I believe nobody should push their beliefs or judge anyone else. This is a very private decision, and it should be privately done. The vaccine does not prevent COVID-19. The vaccine does not prevent the spreading of COVID-19. There is no proof that the vaccine prevents hospitalization or respiratory problems from COVID-19, and to the contrary, the vaccine does have a severe side effect that can cause long-term illness and even death, as stated on the FDA website. Pfizer is non-liable for any adverse effects of the vaccine, including death. Mandatory testing is also a great concern due to the sterilization process of the kits. Ethylene oxide, EO, is used to sterilize the cotton swab being used to the test for COVID-19. Ethylene oxide is a flammable, colorless gas, which is also found in antifreeze detergents and adhesives. It is that odor you smell in polyurethane foam, and it causes cancer. On a final note, our children covering their faces with the mask does not prevent the virus from spreading, but does prevent oxygen from entering their brain. The mask is dangerous and toxic. Our children and administration are breathing in and out their own toxins. In science, we call that carbon dioxide, and it is poisonous to humans. We are preventing our children and administration from breathing oxygen in the classroom. The virus is here to stay, and it will not die. We must learn to live with it, like we have for 100 years with influenza. They did not know how to treat influenza 100 years ago, so thousands died. We now know how to treat COVID-19, and 99.8% people will survive. Sorry I spoke so fast, but I wanted to get my 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next Tamar Seth. Tamar, I know that you would be driving and...
Hi, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
parked.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Breggy, Board President Marcus, and board members, thank you all for your efforts to keep our community safe. I am, however, frustrated and concerned that our neighboring districts, LAUSD and Culver City Unified School District, are being more proactive than Beverly Hills Unified School District in COVID-19 testing and vaccination requirements. Our district prided itself on being a leader in COVID protocols last school year, but has fallen behind now that testing and vaccines are much more readily available. I would like to add my voice to the heretofore quiet chorus of parents who believe that required masking, required regular testing, and required vaccines will keep our community safe and schools open. I am also concerned that the pressure at the middle school and high school levels to attend school, even when not feeling well, will drive the spread of COVID. A Zoom into the classroom option for students quarantining would help students stay on top of high-level course material. I should also note that my 8th grader reports that students at BVMS are not great about masking. One student she was placed with in a small group last week had to be reminded numerous times in a single class period to pull up his mask. Another student in one of her classes just walked into class without a mask on at all. She emailed her assistant principal about her concerns, but was not satisfied with his response. She did not feel safe despite being vaccinated and a conscientious mask wearer herself. I have to add one more thing. My family had COVID in December of 2020, and my husband was quite sick, and I was afraid that we were going to lose him. This is serious. This is not the flu. Please, you don't want to take this home. Your spouse or your kid bring it home or spread it to a little kid. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to try once again for Marit Neiman. Marit?
I'm here. Can you hear me well?
Where's Marit? Where are you? I see you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming back to me, to the board. I want to talk about something a little bit different, but before I do, I wanted to say I find it interesting that the families, the parents, who have you, who want everyone to get tested and wear a mask, are imposing that on other families. Every family should have a choice to do what they want. I don't get to walk into someone else's home and tell them when their child is sick to take Tylenol or Advil. Every family should have an option to do what they want, whether it's to give a vaccine or not. Now I want to speak about something that happened to my child, which I found abhorrent. On Monday at 9:21, I get a text from her saying that she's being pulled out of class. I received no notification from the school. I called the school immediately. I was told I had to speak with Mr. Stewart, who didn't answer his phone, and I left him a message. I called again. I said, I need to speak to whoever has my daughter. I was told, we're not his secretary, ma'am. I had to send an email to Mr. Stewart. I still hadn't heard from him. I received no notification from the school. I sent him an email at 9:41, that is 20 minutes later. And it wasn't until 9:48, after I sent the email to Mr. Stewart, that I received, and I assume some other families received notification that their child had been pulled out because they were allegedly close to someone who had tested positive. I don't know who the child is, which is fine, but I don't know what kind of test they took. I don't know if it was a PCR test or a rapid test. I don't know if they had any symptoms. I was just told that my child cannot return to school unless they were vaccinated and had a negative test, and not any negative test, only a negative test conducted by the school. That's absurd. I have a right to have my child tested by their medical doctor or a doctor of my choice. That is A. And B, my child has antibodies, so she's immune. And I just received notification from Mr. Stewart while I'm waiting here to speak that my child will not be permitted to return to school despite the fact that she has no symptoms, despite the fact that she has the antibodies, and despite the fact that I provided a negative PCR test, which everyone knows is more reliable than a rapid test. Meanwhile, she's being deprived of an education. It is not an equal education. She's being deprived of an education. The fact that this board authorized this kind of conduct and behavior is abhorrent. The school should have notified me or any parent before they pulled a child out of class. And this is information that was known before they pulled the children out of class. There is no reason why an email couldn't have been sent. It doesn't take that long to send an email to 34 parents. I shouldn't have to hear this from my daughter. I shouldn't have to be worried that questions are being asked of her, which, by the way, they were, in violation of HIPAA.
Excuse me, Ms.
Mr.
Neiman, I'm
Stewart
sorry.
tells me it's not
Excuse
a
me,
violation
Ms.
of
Neiman,
HIPAA,
I'm
but it
sorry.
is.
Your 3 minutes are up. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Thank you, I appreciate your comment. Okay?
I would like the board to respond to my concern. I think this is a valid one, and I would like the board to respond to my concern, because this is something that should be addressed.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, next, Kelly Hinden. Kelly, are you there?
I'm here.
Thank you.
Hello. Okay, I'm going to read from my phone. I'm incredibly frustrated as I write this email after hearing that Culver City has now taken the necessary step to require vaccines for staff and eligible students. This comes after wondering for months why our district is not requiring weekly testing like LAUSD. I am very thankful to BHUSD for the additional hours and scope of free testing, and my family will continue to make use of that resource. But I feel like optional testing does not allow for catching and stopping the potential spread of COVID among our schools. This district has acted in the past to make changes and to take action to become a lighthouse district academically. Last year, the administration and staff were phenomenal in adapting and providing a robust and engaging learning environment. But now, when we are once again in the throes of a pandemic, why are we not doing all we can to keep our children and community safe? Do we want to be one of the first forced to go back all online due to the failure to take precautions that are available to us? This district should do all it can to keep the children safe, as their health will impact the larger community. My oldest is vaccinated. My husband and I are as well. I contracted COVID a month ago. I was sick. I still have temporary asthma as a result of the infection. I am thankful the rest of my family did not catch the virus, especially our youngest two who are not eligible for the vaccine. We want our children in school just like everyone else. This last week has been amazing for my youngest, who keeps walking in the background, who is returning to an in-person learning for the first time in almost a year and a half. Socially and emotionally, this is what they need. They need to be with their teachers and their friends. Our children that are too young to be vaccinated yet should be supported by the actions of this district. Vaccines required for those that are eligible, masks in any crowded place, including outdoors when necessary, testing and proper ventilation systems. We know the vaccine works. We know testing can pinpoint and isolate infected individuals before they spread the virus further. I know most of you on the board, and I respect all of you for your commitment to the children and this community. Please do the right thing and do it quickly. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your time.
Thank you. Mr. Behrman. Ethan Behrman.
Yes, honorable board members and superintendent, I speak with you again today as we've experienced numerous alarming positive COVID-19 cases in the district. I see three key pieces missing from the district's approach: enforced testing, enforced mask mandates, and accountability. As previous speakers have said, we need a weekly test for in-person attendance. We know that the mutating virus has a large viral load and shedding rate in both symptomatic and asymptomatic carriers. Testing everyone like LAUSD and Culver City is the prudent path to reduce the opportunity for an outbreak in our schools. Parent doesn't want their child tested, move them to independent study. We need to immediately move to change the dress code to making masks a required article of clothing to cover the mouth and nose while indoors, as Mrs. Hinden just said moments ago. There's no legitimate reason other than a valid medical excuse from a licensed medical doctor in California to remove that item, which a preponderance of scientific literature has shown to reduce transmission of respiratory illnesses in the 80 to 89% range. This must be enforced for the safety of all. Further, there's no legitimate religious objection to this article of clothing, and for those who do want to claim that, I'm shocked at how many nudists are surrounding me and think clothing should be optional at school. We need accountability. There's no point in having a rule if we don't enforce it. Anybody who breaks the rule needs to receive warnings, needs to have stern actions taken against them, like being sent home, and then staff and contractors, of course, must be approached within their respective contracts. Oddly, the federal courts uphold all of these strong actions by the school district. Anybody who's claiming they're going to file a lawsuit will quickly lose. As a matter of fact, after I wrote my comment for today, citing the Texas case of Bridges versus Houston Methodist Hospital, of course, which said the arguments were frivolous, not based on law, and improperly applied, the Sixth Circuit today just rejected a preliminary injunction, same basis again. The country is founded on the idea that public health is actually greater than your individual desire or belief about something. The choice of public health is a real one. Thus, I urge you, board members and superintendent, to ignore the loud, misled minority who choose the language of fear profiteers attaching so deeply into their limbic system over the health of our community. By the way, anybody suggesting ivermectin is in contradiction to what the FDA is warning right now. So I'm shocked to hear somebody in our community recommend that. Also, people might want to read what HIPAA really is about, because I think that's
Excuse
also
me,
being
Mr. Behrman, I'm sorry.
cited.
Your time is, thank you very much for your comments. Okay, Alana Castanon.
Hello, Board of Education and Superintendent Dr. Breggy. My name is Elena Castanon, and I am a middle school STEM teacher at BVMS and the certificated president of the Beverly Hills Education Association. I'd like to begin by thanking you for your continued focus on safety during the pandemic. Unfortunately, we're not through it yet. I'm glad to see the development of the active cases tracker on the BHUSD website, and I believe that it would be informative to have the total cases for the school year reported there as well. The governor's recent order will require verification of vaccination status for K-12 school workers and establishes diagnostic screening testing of unvaccinated workers to minimize the risk that they will transmit COVID while on K-12 school campuses. This is supported by the California Teachers Association, and requiring vaccine verification or testing for all school staff is an appropriate next step to ensure the safety of our school community and to protect our youngest learners. Further, it seems to reason that if the 1 to 2 adults in each schoolroom have these requirements to minimize the risk of transmitting COVID in the classroom, that it would be even more beneficial for the health of our community if the 20 to 30 students in each room also comply with frequent testing. The Los Angeles Department of Public Health has provided this language in their reopening protocols for schools. Quote, in addition to all requirements and recommendations written in this protocol, schools are to adopt strategies that normalize, promote, and facilitate COVID-19 vaccination for all eligible staff and students on your campus. End quote. I hope that BHUSD takes heed of this urging. To the students and families in our community, BHEA encourages you to continue to be safe and wear your mask. There is testing available at each school site 1 day per week. This is a free service being provided to you by BHUSD. Please make use of it. Thank you very much for your time and consideration this evening.
Thank you. Okay, that ends the comment period. And thank you all for your contributions. I think we'll be getting to this discussion later on in the meeting. It's under discussion at a later time in the meeting. Okay. I have been requested to pull number 9I and 9T, so I will make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
President Marcus, can I please pull 9L?
9L?
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar minus 9I, 9L, and 9T. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Wells. So it's been moved and seconded by Mrs. Marcus and Mrs. Wells to approve the consent calendar with 9I, 9T, and 9L eliminated. I call for the question. Mr. Raymer.
Yes.
Dr. Stern.
Yes.
Mrs. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Margot, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
And Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. I will make a motion to approve the professional services of Niaz Kohani. And that was one that was pulled by you, Mr. Raymer. So if you'd like to speak to that, I would appreciate it. I need a second.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Margot. Moved by Mrs. Marcus, seconded by Mr. Margot. Go ahead, Mr. Raymer.
I just wanted to make a quick clarification on the agenda. The amount of the total invoice and the total invoice is there's a typo. It should be 1,000.00, but instead it reads 1,000.00. I just wanted to make that clear in case people were confused by that notation or did not look at the PSA. So
Okay,
that's it.
Pam, did you get that? Mrs. Crashauer? The correction?
Yes, I got it. I'll make the correction now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any other comment on that item? If not, I will call for the question. Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
And Mrs. Marcus is a yes for, Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
I also am a yes.
I'm sorry. When they're not there, I forget the, okay. I make a motion to approve 9T, which is ratification. No, 9L. I'm sorry, 9L. I make a motion to approve the agreement with Boss Graphics Incorporation for the restoration of the logo at Beverly Hills High School. Do I have a second? Who is that?
Kristen?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Walker-Schuman. Okay, I think that you pulled that, right, Mr. Margot?
Yes, I pulled it. I just wanted, I'm not sure where my colleagues stand or staff, but I took a look at the graphics. Thank you for sending it to me. And I just wanted to opine and say everything looks great except the outside on the half, the half semicircle part. I just wonder what the choice in going with the orange background to the Norman mascot. It's just, for me personally, it's a lot of orange, and I just wonder why we just didn't want to put it on white. I mean, it is in your face amount of orange, and I'm not a fan of it, and I just needed to get that out there before this is finally approved and put up, because I loved everything else that was done on all the graphics. Plus, by the way, if you don't paint all that orange, you'll save a lot of money in paint, but that's neither here nor there, right? So that's my opinion about all of that lovely orange.
Okay, anybody else want to make an opinion or a comment, Mr. Raymer?
Yeah, I'd like to agree with Mr. Margot on that point. I do think the orange background on the logo is a tad bit much, especially to those passing by in front of the school. It's definitely rather distracting, which may have been what we were going for, but I think that a white background would both help to make it simpler, which is sometimes better, as well as emphasize the logo itself rather than the background.
Dr. Stern, any comment?
No.
Mrs. Wells?
I have no comment. Thank you.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
I'm actually okay with the orange. I think it pops really nicely. It's something different than we had before. You know, it was a white background with the Norman logo before, but I don't need to spend a lot of time on this one. I think it goes really well with the branding guide. I think actually I defer to Ms. Darkins on this one.
I thought it was a little bit overkill on it. I thought that there was just a bit too much. That was my feeling. It was just overbearing on the way I saw it. So that was just my personal feeling, and I didn't go to Beverly Hills High School, so I'm not going to make a big issue out of it, but I thought it was, I think always less is more. So that was my opinion of it when I saw it. Okay?
So I just want to say that, so we've been based on feedback that we had been provided at previous meetings, so I would have to ask staff where we are in the process with Boss Graphics as far as any revisions.
Do you want to see a live picture of what it could be and vote on it now?
Yes, that might be helpful.
Be great.
Thank you.
Okay, this would be black. This is orange. And then this is rough. I'm on my feet.
I'm impressed.
Why is it black and orange? I don't understand. It's either white or black. Oh, I see. You're making it different for us. Okay.
Well, I think something. So that's it orange.
Why did you cross out, I mean, you impose one over the other? It's too much to me.
The orange?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that there's too much on the whole wall. To me, it's overbearing.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion. I'm a one person who thinks less is more.
Can I just also add too that it's important, and maybe you've done this with your with your opinions, but it's also like looking, if you're not that close to it and you're away from it, that looks a lot different as well. I mean, this is a really, very few people are going to be this close.
Have the students had any input on this at all in terms of their comments on it?
Not as yet. We've brought it to the board twice. It was designed by the original branding committee using those assets, but the final product was never brought to that focus group. It was brought to the board twice.
The black is depressing.
I know I was not in attendance to one of those meetings that it was bought when it was pushed more into the final stage. That's why I felt the need to say something tonight. I'm not going to die on this hill. There's way more important stuff to talk about, but I do prefer this version that you're showing right now. But I'm only one person, and this doesn't work that way. So thank you for entertaining my concern.
May I offer an opinion?
Sure.
I think the white is classic and will forever be classic. However, I would defer to Mr. Haas for cleaning the white.
I think that was an issue with the last one, the last logo.
Actually, in my opinion, I think the white is the better choice. The reason is when we go with large areas with very deep colors, they actually tend to fade. And although we have some bright colors, when you put it on that large wall and it heats, and it's not going to last as long as it might. So in my opinion, durability-wise, I think the white is the better way to go.
Well,
we love the white, so now what does the board think? And you
Well-
just tell us and we'll make it happen.
Well, right now we're voting on the motion, but we'd have to go back and amend the motion to include the fact that the background is white, I guess, unless it will be understood that that's what we want.
It's not, President Marcus, the motion is for the actual
That's what I'm
painters,
saying,
not-
yeah.
Not the logo.
Yeah, so
Right.
let's call for the question. Oh, wait, does anybody else have anything more to say? Mr. Raymer?
I do have one more question. Because we would be approving just the
We are only approving the amount.
Yeah, exactly. But would that amount or that max amount change if the color is changed to white? Are they supplying the paint or just the services? And is it more expensive as it is now, or would it be a different cost if it is a white background?
The white background probably would reduce the cost somewhat, because right now we have the white background, which is the existing substrate of the building. So if we're just applying the logo on that substrate, certainly the lack of that background would be considerably less work and effort. So we would work with the vendor, and we still have time to work with the vendor to modify if that's what you folks want to do.
Mrs.
Yeah,
Wells?
Sorry, I was just curious. Thank you for answering the question.
sorry,
I
Mr.
was
Raymer.
wondering if it was Now I'll defer to the other board members on what they believe should happen, given that the cost may be slightly less if they would like to amend the cap, although I imagine that would have to be looked at another meeting.
Okay, Mrs. Wells?
I have a question about the preparation for that. Is the wall already prepped and painted?
Yes, it is. So I've been working with installing logos on school buildings for many years. One of the biggest factors involved in that is making sure that we have a good solid substrate underneath. So the entire swim gym has had a proper exterior paint job for full preparation, priming, and multiple coats of finished paint. So it has an excellent substrate for which the logo will last many years.
Okay. It's somewhat unrelated then. I just have a question. Like below where it says Beverly Hills High School, like it looks like, and I don't know, this is probably going to sound very nitpicky, but I'm not sure if it's just dirt that's already accumulated or like on that ledge that was painted already.
When you say the ledge, are you talking about the lower below the windows there?
Just above the windows where it says high school. It just looks like along that ledge. When I was looking, I couldn't tell if it's been painted yet or not.
The entire building has been painted. So I'm not sure if that's a good representation on the picture of what the building actually looks like, or it could be a shadow or something like that. But the building should be clean and fresh.
There's a space between where it says Beverly Hills High School and the dome, isn't there? Or is that all part of one?
There is. So the where it says Beverly Hills High School is actually a lower kind of a one-story elevation.
Is there a space between it? No.
Yes.
There's a space between the lower elevation, that and the back?
Yes, about 40 feet.
Okay.
It's a good distance. That's a one-story building that's in front of the dome shape.
I've got one more
Mr. Raymer?
question. So this rendering here shows what it would look like if you were to be standing below, where you can't get the full image of the recessed area where the actual logo is. Is there more to that logo that will be painted that just isn't seen from this angle, or is this the whole?
Are you talking about the upper logo to the left?
Yes, because I thought I'm wondering if there's more to him, so that like when you are looking at it from a farther distance away, you may see more.
There's
or
not
if
much.
It just cuts off.
There's not much more, because that flat roof goes straight back. So there may be a small 6, 8, 10 inches that you don't see on that drawing or that rendering.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ellis, you had something you wanted to say?
You lose something because it's a three-dimensional picture in two-dimensional space. So that's why you don't get the depth of perception.
That would be the math teacher in Mr. Ellis. Thank you very much. I was thinking the same thing.
Do we have direction on color?
Big pardon?
I'm good with white.
I'm fine with white.
Okay. All right. Mr. Margot, are you fine with white?
I am, yes, thank you.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
You know what, I think we all need to move on to stuff that actually impacts education, so I'm gonna go with whatever the majority wants.
All right, call for the question, then they're moving on. You're saying yes, I assume. Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells? Dr.
Yes.
Stern, I mean.
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
You went Noah?
Voting.
Yeah. I think Noah.
I'll
I'll just say yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Yes, he did say yes.
Yeah, sorry. Yes.
And Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
And I'll say yes, passes. Okay, one more item on here, the item number 9T, which is the purchase order. I will move to approve the purchase order, ratification of the purchase order number 4 for 2021-2022. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
I heard Mrs. Wells first, thank you. moved by Mrs. Marcus, seconded by Mrs. Wells. Mrs. Wells, you pulled that. You have something to say about it.
I just wanted to pull it for a discussion, as a discussion item, or make a comment actually, that I have requested for the bond management services for lines 1 through 9, which are the purchase order amounts for the bond management services, for the backup for that. And that's really along the lines of what the bond performance audit had requested and highlighted when they did their report. And I can read that now, which says, under program management, document to evidence a detailed review of the bond program staffing needs by the district was not available upon request. Based on inquiry, the district and TCDS conducted a review of the bond program staffing needs. However, the documentation of this review was not included in the purchase order submittal to district management or the board for review to ensure alignment with contract terms and appropriateness. And I think that it's appropriate for us to now follow up with that by asking for the backup when we receive these purchase orders. And so I have requested to receive that information. And that's all I really wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? If not, I'll call for the question. Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
And Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
And Mrs. Marcus is a yes, and that includes that portion of the consent calendar. Okay, moving right along, we now have our superintendent's report. Dr. Breggy.
Thank you. Just give me 1 second, please. Whoops. Hang on 1
You're
second.
a busy guy.
It's I know, right? The button is right in the wrong spot for me to. Hang on 1 second. If I can move this, there we go. On my screen, I've got lots of boxes up for some reason. There we go. Thank you. I don't know if we can fix that.
Would you prefer that I collapse the box fully?
That'd be great. That would help. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Raymer. So a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, many times you've heard us talk about, as administrators and former principals and teachers, that we've taken on a very large responsibility, and oftentimes we feel like we've taken on the responsibility of working with the LA County Department of Public Health. And so I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but the reason why I have this up here is just to share with you that the symptoms that students might be showing before they leave home, it's really critical that the health screening is done in a way with great fidelity. We are seeing a lot of students still come to school that are not feeling well, or they are having some of these symptoms. And so I implore everyone, as we are finding positive cases in our schools, to really understand the impact, even one student coming to school with these symptoms, that if they do test positive, that it creates an effect in the school with many close contacts, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. So I wanted to start off by just saying to really, before students leave in the morning, to do that self-check. So we've shown you before the compliance team. We have talked before about the importance of the health screening, the thermal scanners that we have up and running in our schools. We are finding ways working with the Department of Public Health to find ways to make our work more efficient so that kids are safe and that we're doing things in a way that can move things along. The seating chart aspect that we have when we're identifying close contacts has been really important to us and has really helped us. And we've broken up our team a little bit. So we have a COVID-19 admin team. We also have a compliance team. So it's the district working with the school site team. So I want to talk to you just a little bit about positive cases in our schools. And the most important thing that people need to realize that if there is a positive case, regardless of what your vaccination status, is a 10-day quarantine. It's an isolation at home, and students need to stay at home, and they can return to school after 10 days. So what happens is I want to give you kind of an idea of what happens from the perspective of the administration and also the student perspective as we have cases that have developed in our schools. So the school site team is alerted when there is a case. And I would like to just say that when parents know that there is a COVID-19 positive case in your home, is to reach out and let us know. So at the high school, it's Mr. Stewart. At BVMS, it's Mr. Stern. At Hawthorne, it's Ms. Caber. And at Horace Mann, it's Mr. Regan. Is at any time to reach out and share that information. There is a lot of information that happens behind the scenes. I'm going to share that with you, but I do ask that you reach out as soon as you know, even if it's by email. The school site COVID team, we then begin to have conversations with the student and the parent. We kind of huddle together so that we can begin the contact tracing. The contact tracing, what's important for you to know about when we have the contact tracing is that when we're looking to see those people that have been exposed, potentially, we look at 48 hours prior to the positive test, or we look at if symptoms, when the symptoms started. So whichever one comes first, that's what we're looking at. So again, anyone within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes in any 24-hour period is going to be considered to be a close contact. We do a lot of work to check and really do an investigation to find out, not just in the classroom, but our students are very involved. Some students are pulled out for different programming. So we spend a lot of time meeting and talking with teachers and retracing steps so that we can do the best job that we can, knowing that there's a positive case, to then find those people that have been exposed to this individual. We do a siblings cross-check as well. We have found that in the previous work that we've done, that many times there is a sibling that's involved. It may not be at the school where this particular student would be at. It could be a sibling at another school, so we do that check. Then we look to see if there is an epidemiologically linked. That is really important for us to determine if COVID-19 is being spread within a classroom or in a certain area of the classroom, or is it a case where somebody is positive and it's not being linked to anyone else in our schools. As I mentioned, the seating charts before are really helpful. We look at the seating charts to see that 6 foot, that distancing around. We also then work with the teacher and look to see if the student was absent or if the student was sitting someplace else. So we just don't take it for granted that someone is where they are. We spend a lot of time retracing these steps. We reach out to the board. We're required to reach out to the staff, so we do that as well. And sorry for this delay. So I want to talk to you just a little bit about what the close contacts now. So the person has been identified as someone that has COVID-19, whether it's staff or students. And then we begin to identify those close contacts. We do remove them from the classroom. And it is important for us, and we're required to do this, as soon as we know that somebody is a close contact. We have an obligation to be able to remove them from the classroom because of potential exposure. So we move those students out. We group those students. We talk with those students. And we do have a lot of conversation about what's going to happen next with our students. We do contact parents. And so, as you heard earlier before with one of the comments, that's great feedback for us to go back and look at our timing. But as students are being pulled out and we're talking to a group of students, at that time, an email is sent to parents. Now, specifically at the middle school and high school level, we're talking with the students, and it is important that we have conversations with them to let them know what's going on. And then we send the email to the parents so that the parents then know what's happening with their particular student and what their next steps are. Because the testing piece, that is a critical importance to us to have the students test right there at the school, is we have a software program. It's Snapdragon? Dragonfly. And it's a very easy system. And so we have parents that are signing up for that system so that they give consent, and they also provide a booking time so that students can get tested right away. So that is sent. There's also an opportunity for students to be able to provide a digital record and get that digital record. If you're not aware of this, you might want to check this out. But it's myvaccinerecord.cdph.ca.gov. And students have an opportunity to be able to then retrieve their vaccination information. So I think the most important thing that I want you to know about this slide is that if you look at the very top of this slide, if it's you're a student that's listening or if you're a parent, that if there is a close contact, that you are either going to be asymptomatic and you are not vaccinated, or you're going to be asymptomatic and you are vaccinated. So if you look at this particular, now I'm talking about the close contacts, that centerpiece is the positive case that I was just talking about. Up at the top, those are going to be your close contacts. And the important part about the close contacts is that if you are asymptomatic and you are unvaccinated and you test and you are negative, you still have to be quarantined, but after day 5, you can test again, and if you are negative again, then you can come back again after day 7. So on the 8th day, you can come back. The close contact for if you are fully vaccinated, this is an opportunity for our students to be able to provide that information if they have been vaccinated, and that's that website, so that we get proof of that the vaccination. Usually this is done by a picture. Our students have been very creative about being able to get the proof that they've been vaccinated. So these are students that if they test negative, and they are able to provide the proof of their vaccination, then they can return back to class. So this is an important chart because this is something you might want to keep out in case your children are at any time pulled out to be a close contact. For those students that have had COVID-19 in their close contact within 90 days, then students can provide proof of having COVID-19, any type of information from a doctor, and they test negative, then they also can return back to class. So we've really enhanced our testing. We are providing testing every single day at the district office starting at 7:30. This has been well received. People are taking advantage of the additional testing opportunities that we've provided. And then we also have testing at each of our school sites during the week, in addition to our district office testing. So from 7:30 to 4:30, that testing is available for our students and our staff. As you've heard tonight a few times, based on feedback, we have created a dashboard update so that parents in the community can get an idea of where we are with our reported cases in each of our schools and whether we're reporting staff or our students. And I think this is really important because we want to be able to collect this data as we move forward so that we can then make decisions based on the data that we're seeing. And I do want to point out that, again, we've had many circumstances in which students are coming to school and they are not feeling well. And we've even had a situation where we had a student come to school and they were a sibling of another student that tested positive. So we're asking you to ask questions if you're not sure. Reach out to your school administration if you have questions about whether somebody should come to school, because we'd be glad to answer those for you. And finally, something else that's changed, and we hear it all the time, is how many cases of COVID-19 will it take before it closes a school or the district? And you may remember from months and months ago that the health order did have a number, and it was 25% of the schools. And if there were 3 epidemiologically linked cases, then you could close a school. And then in our case with 4 schools, then we would close the entire district. And that has changed. And so while the county has shifted much of its responsibility of reporting and documentation onto the administration, they have also changed the this protocol, this formula, if you will, of if this happens, then you close, and that has all changed. So we still report every one of our positive cases. We still have to document our close contacts, but we have individual conversations with our partners at the LA County Department of Public Health each time we have a positive case, and the determination if there is ever going to be a closure would be through that conversation with the Department of Public Health. It's treated much differently than the way that it was before. And so everything's based on a conversation, everything's based on the data that we're providing the county. Just some new revisions to youth sports, and they're up here, so I will not read them all to you. I think the most important thing that for our athletes is our return to weekly testing for our athletes. So we are working on that currently. We were doing this last year, so we are, we've done this before. We know how to do it, and we will be doing that again for our athletes. So we will be in touch with our athletes very soon, as this revision just came out today. And lastly, the Board of Education has been requesting a governance calendar,
Yay.
Which is really important. This is a tool for planning. It helps us prioritize. It helps us look at the tasks and the timeliness of the tasks and to anticipate when some of those big decisions are coming up for a school district. We have collected all of the information. Now we're in the process of putting it on paper. So when we can get out of being public health officers, we are going to be able to present this to you very soon. We're very excited to be able to share this with you because it's been a long time coming, but we're very excited to be able to do that in just a short time. And that is my report for this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Breggy. This weekend, or this meeting, it's your turn, Mr. Raymer. You're the first to get to go.
All right, I don't think I have any questions at this time, but thank you for the detailed reports and the clarification to the community about the quarantine guidelines. I know that we broadcasted them to the school during our Norman Connection period at the high school the other day, but I do think that getting it in out to the community as a whole is a very big part of keeping our campuses safe, so thank you for that.
Sure.
Dr. Stern.
I think I'm good for right now. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Margot.
Thank you for the report, Dr. Breggy. A lot of this we're going to cover very shortly in our discussion item, so I'll leave it for that.
Thank you. Mrs. Wells?
Well, thank you for your report. And I'm very happy to see that calendar. I can't wait to to have that as a tool. I think it's going to be very beneficial for the board and make things more manageable, even better managed by having a calendar to look forward to anticipate what things we are having on our plate. With regard to the testing and the vaccines, I know we're going to be discussing in a little bit, but I would like to, at this point, just recommend that we look into having our schools be a vaccine site now that vaccines have been FDA approved for 16 and above. I think it would be beneficial for the student body and or teachers in the community to have that opportunity again to have vaccines available at the school. So I don't know if that's something we can look into, but I think it would be very beneficial. And as well, I think this information is so helpful for the community to know, all the different elements that we're facing this year as we have to react to what's happening in the community with regard to the virus and how it's spreading in our schools. And I would like to see some sort of a forum or regular standing information updates for the community and parents to share that information so that we can get as much correct and current information out to the parent body. And, I don't know, I brought this up earlier, if we can have some sort of a expert panel where parents can do a Q&A and kind of, have an opportunity to ask all their many questions and to hear different opinions, I think might be also helpful for the community. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
So I just want to circle back and clarify again, because I've had a bunch of questions and I know it was in the paper. There is no circumstance where a student who tests positive can come back to campus without quarantining, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yes.
I also would like to add that the FDA has not approved ivermectin for use in treating or preventing COVID-19 in humans, but the FDA did grant full approval for the Pfizer BioNTech COVID shot. And it surprises me to hear that we have, well, I guess it shouldn't surprise me, but it does, that we have students that are experiencing symptoms and still coming to school. In a regular environment, it's inconsiderate. In this environment, it's outrageous. So I would really hope that our parents can do a little bit more soul searching and be a little bit more forthcoming with information, because those students that are coming, that are having symptoms, are putting everyone else at risk. And if our real intent is to try and keep kids in class in person, then we need to work together a little bit better to make sure that we can maintain this. I almost don't even have any more words, but I thank you for your presentation. I thank you for trying to clarify it. I mean, I actually really like the idea that Ms. Wells just came up with to have some sort of panel. I think that would be helpful. But I also think that we are putting out a tremendous amount of information. I've had a bunch of parents say, it's like overkill with so many notifications and so many updates, and each one of them you have to read because the information is different in each email. So I don't know, I'm not sure what format more information can take, but I think we need to be real thoughtful about it, because I think people are a little overwhelmed with what they're getting right now. But certainly something that we should continue to talk about.
Thank you for that.
Thanks for your, Dr. Breggy.
Thank you for that point. And again, as an superintendent and ex officio public health officer, that a lot of this is just required. So the communication pieces, while they may seem monotonous and filling people's inboxes, we do have requirements that we're actually we have to share that information with parents, even if it's on a repetitive basis.
So a couple of things I just wanted to mention. Dr. Breggy knows that I've been after him since I became president to get a comprehensive calendar, and I'm thrilled to see it tonight, and I'm looking forward to its completion, and then when we can direct our attention to things that have to do with that particular item. I would like to talk a little bit about kids coming to school sick also, and then the jeopardy they put everybody else in, and the fact that it might just be the straw that could break the camel's back in terms of numbers and so on. And I know that the excuse is, oh, I don't want to miss school, I don't want to miss school. But the problem is if you get sick, you're going to have to miss school, and it's better to be when it's not so bad, to err on the safety side. So I'm hoping that parents are listening and enforcing the fact that they're not going to send their kids to school if they have any inkling that the child is sick. It's very important. And I guess I was the one that a couple weeks ago said something about a question and answer sheet that could answer questions and so on. And I'd like to see that maybe continue also, if it's possible.
Sure.
And I got to say that I think that we're doing a magnificent job in the district in terms of what's going on, and I can't tell you how many hours the administration spends on this, and it's taken away from the educational portion of our schools, which is unfortunate that the attention is there, and we have to do it, but I really feel badly that that's what's happening. And so, and with that, if there's anybody else who wants to make another comment, Mr. Raymer?
I do have one more question. I should really write these down while we're going because I always remember them always at the end. But one of the things that, somewhat of a recommendation on the Parent Square health screening, it came up the first time and I was very happy about it, that after filling it out for a couple of days, there's a button that just says select no for everything, which definitely speeds up the process, and I was thankful for it in the moment. But I think possibly if you're able to remove that button, it would allow people to spend more time filling out the health screening so that they truly comprehend what they're clicking no to. Even if they zoom through it, I think that making it so they have to scroll by each individual point and each individual agreement would aid in ensuring that people, one, fill it out, and two, fill it out more accurately.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Raymer, it is your turn to give the student report. Student board member.
Alrighty. Allow me to share my screen. I have a presentation as I did before, so one moment. Oh, and there we go. Let me go hit the... All right, so thank you, everyone. Time for my report. And this week I have a lot more things to talk about because I did really focus on ensuring that I had things to report from each school site. And if some school sites didn't get back to me this week, I definitely will have items for them in the future. But for now, I do have things to report from the high school and also Beverly Vista. So, BHHS news, past, present, and future. Starting with the past, last week we had our club summit, which is a time for leaders of clubs to come and either renew a club that they've had in the past or get information to start a new club. This was a great success. Mr. Hengler, the ASB advisor, was the one who moderated, as ASB is in charge of all clubs on campus. In the past, we've been very fortunate to have over 70 on-campus student-run clubs. We're hoping to have a similar number now and ensure that students stay engaged with their classmates and on their campus. Going along with one of those fantastic clubs is Generations. Oh, if my keyboard will work. Oh, works too well. All right, Generations is a fantastic organization that was started 2 years ago, and its mission statement and its goal is to connect high school students with senior citizens, whether that be in assisted living facilities or within the community. We've done lots of volunteering there in the past. COVID did make it difficult, but we tried to stay up to date by hosting Zoom calls with residents at assisted living facilities, and recently we have partnered with the Beverly Hills Active Adults Club to pair students at the high school and around the community with senior citizens around the community who want to be active. So we had an event this past Sunday at Roxbury Park where we had a good showing of high school juniors and seniors who attended, as well as pastries and coffee for any Beverly Hills resident who wanted to stop by. So here are some images from that. We met at Roxbury Park just across the way. Yeah, it was a fantastic opportunity. We're looking to do more like it in the future, and the partnership between Generations and the Beverly Hills Active Adults Club continues to solidify. So you should see more events like it in the future. Speaking of future, the 9th grade parent social hosted by the BHHS PTSA will be Tuesday, August 31st from 5:30 to 7:30. And on my initial slide, I said I had news from the past, the present, and the future. The present is that the 10th grade parent social is going on as we speak. The reason why they had a 10th grade parent social this year is because those parents did not have the opportunity to meet and mingle with other parents within their child's grade level when they were 9th grade parents. So PTSA wanted to give them the opportunity to meet others within their child's grade level as well. Also, Club Day. This is a fantastic opportunity for clubs on campus to recruit members and get their name out there. We'll be sending out information soon to the leaders of clubs so that they can properly sign up and reserve tables. It's a fun time. You get to meet a lot of very cool people who you may have not met otherwise, and you also get to see a good showing of clubs on campus that you may have not known about. Now on to BVMS news. Starting in the past, towards the start of school, they held orientations for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, as well as for all new students coming to the district. Here are some pictures from those orientations. Some upperclassmen and members of ASB did help out on giving tours and making sure that all the new students felt acclimated. Here are some other pictures from those orientations. And next is the PTA Back to School Carnival. This was held at the end of last week, and I know Dr. Breggy was in attendance, and it looked like he had a great time from the pictures that I saw. So I'm sure a lot of the students had fun. So just a big shout out to the BVMS PTA for helping put that on, as well as Dr. Scon for helping with organization. And future news at BVMS, they are having their ASB elections on September 15th. So all of those at BV who are hoping to run for some kind of office and make a difference within their school, I would definitely recommend that they do so. It's a great opportunity. I was involved in ASB at El Rodeo, and I had a fantastic time with it. The advisor at BV is the same as I had, Mr. Tinter. He is a great influence for the student body and someone who really does very well in that role. And another bonus is that in the future, the ASB president at BVMS will get to correspond with me to give me more things to update them on. So, run for that. And looking ahead, this is both for items that I didn't have pictures for and to say that I really look forward to working with all of the school sites in the futures, the administrations and the staffs there, so I can report on activities there because they're equally as important as all the other school sites. And I also wanted to say something I did not have a picture for. I was hoping to get some of their practice today, but the Beverly Hills High School football team has their first home game this Friday. I encourage everyone to go and show your support. It's going to be a great time, and I really hope that we do well this season. I have high hopes.
I'd just like to add to that, they got 50 kids on the team now.
It's great to see. You love to see those organizations get bigger because we have had some decline in the past, but the athletic department is working very hard to ensure that that all stays up to par. So now for some acknowledgments. This is specifically for the members of the district COVID task force as well as the school site administrations who are working with it. I know that they have been spending lots and lots of time to ensure that we all stay safe with contact tracing and with ensuring testing and all the proper filing to the county is underway. So their sacrifice of their time is definitely to our benefit, so I just wanted to thank them for putting in the time and effort to ensure that we all stay safe. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Let's go around and see if we have any comments. I'd like to ask Dr. Stern.
Thank you, Mr. Raymer, for such a comprehensive report. I'm really excited to see that there's a number of clubs that will be unveiling September 2nd. And I want to ask you, is that open to 9th through 12th grade, or is it grade specific?
The club day will be held at lunch on September 2nd, so any grade level can stop by. Usually we take up the area around the third floor patio. Because we may want to spread out a little more, we may be on the 3rd and 2nd, but for now, the 3rd floor patio at the high school. It'll be outdoors at lunch, so people will be able to eat and get through their lunchtime activities, but all grade levels are able to attend, and that's what we really encourage, because getting involved with the club freshman year can really be a life-changing experience, and that you may find a passion of yours you may have not found otherwise. So thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Margot?
Nothing to comment. Thank you, Eli, for the comprehensive report.
Mrs. Wells?
Thank you, Eli, for your report. It's wonderful. And I also just wanted to join you in thanking our staff and administration for all of the hard work that you put in for the first week of school and before, actually, to help keep our schools open. I know it is a lot of extra work, and everybody is working so hard to achieve this goal. So I also really appreciate your hard work. So thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
No comments, just thanks for your report.
I would like to also mention how comprehensive it was, and thank you very much, Mr. Raymer. Also, I mentioned getting the elementary schools. You might want to make some contact with some of the principals and find out what's going on there. And see, because I know that they'll be having student body elections and things like that for their 5th grades and so on. So I'm sure that they can give you some of the things that are going on down there.
I spoke with, I emailed with Mr. Painter at the at Hawthorne, and I'm hoping to talk to Ms. Caber soon about getting some items. And I also connected with Mr. Bugby today, who referred me to the proper people to reach out to, who have both the media and the information about the upcoming event. So you should see that at the next meeting.
Good. All right. Thank you. Okay, we're going to be moving on. I'm going to make a motion to approve the revised 5-year deferred maintenance plan, but I do believe that we are going to have a presentation on that, if I recall.
I'll second.
Do I have a second? Mrs. Walker-Schuman? Thank you.
Set up here. This is the one that will do it. This one right here. So just the down.
Down to the next one.
Yeah, down to the next one. Okay. You're on.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to use a combination of real technology and the old-fashioned way, so thank you for the patience with that. I appreciate that. Good evening, Board and Dr. Brady. Tonight I'm here to discuss deferred maintenance in our Maintenance and Operations Department. In early 2019, the Maintenance and Operations Department began processes that led to the creation of a board-approved 5-year deferred maintenance plan. I'd like to share some of our 2021 accomplishments, plans and goals for 21-22, and what target projects are slated for the years 22-23 through 24-25. We're about 90% complete with our district-wide energy management system, our EMS system. It has given us benefits now, but will reach its full potential next calendar year. The EMS system is one example of how the M&O department and TCDS, the district's bond manager, work together. The programming and graphics must be standardized for not only our existing buildings, but for those that are being modernized through our bond program. Extensive communication and cooperation take place in order to ensure that the district receives the best possible product throughout their properties. Tree maintenance helped us manage leaks, reduce vermin intrusion, and reduce the work of maintenance staff by eliminating messy foliage. We have improved the ceramic space. There is still some work remaining, and our radio room improvements are in planning stages. This will ensure the proper continuity of district communications in daily and emergency situations. At Beverly Hills High School, the A building corridors, lockers, and common area improvements have been completed, and we're working closely with TCDS to plan and execute, or we worked closely with TCDS to plan and execute this project. We're looking at a couple of pictures here of our Conheim gym, and we got a lot of positive feedback about the picture on the left, which is about the improved quality of play due to the floor repairs and refinishing we did on those 2 floors. The picture on the right represents some door replacements and hardware replacements we've done to replace door and hardware system that had reached the end of their useful life on the west end of the Conheim building. This has improved safety and access control. We'll also be focused on the east side this coming year. The swim gym received considerable attention this year. I'm excited to share some of the completed projects with you. This set of pictures, and this slide represents pictures of the wall heating units that were replaced, louvered windows actuators that were replaced, and new roof vents. Those may seem like simple things, but they actually all tie in together. There's actually a barometer on the wall, so when the humidity reaches a certain level, the window actuators actually open the louvered windows and turn on the upper vents. The system is connected to our energy management system and is automatically activated when the humidity reaches that certain point, or we can also manually program it as we desire. The above provides for better indoor air quality and a more comfortable environment. On the left, we are looking at a picture of the restored lighting on one of the 2 sides of the gym where lighting was replaced. Our electricians worked hard to restore the system using specially constructed scaffolding. On the right, we are looking at freshly painted swim gym exterior, which will provide for an excellent long-term substrate to receive our special graphics design that Rebecca and others have been working on. This is an excellent example of interdepartmental cooperation in that our athletic director, Tim Ellis, our Director of Public Relations, Rebecca Starkins, myself, along with graphic design team, work together to develop and present branded designs for board approval. I'm gonna let this one sink in for a second because I think we all remember the bathrooms that we had in the swim gym. And our new swim gym restroom facilities are beautiful, branded, and have new fixtures and partitions, and will give us many, many years of trouble-free use. These pictures represent the new sheet metal retractable floor ends. This is one of the most labor-intensive processes of the swim gym restoration. More than 80 custom pieces were fabricated, specially coated, and installed to exacting standards. Special consideration and provisions were made to reduce or eliminate future corrosion. On the left, we were looking at a newly refinished floor, which will improve the quality of play for our athletes. In the center, we are looking at our restored showers. And on the right, we can see an example of our repaired tile work and track repairs. The track is fabricated out of 1/2-inch solid plate stainless steel, specially textured to provide for non-slip use. That was also one of the second most, or actually probably the first most labor-intensive part of the swim gym, and that we actually have almost 3 hours per bolt trying to drill them out, and it was just a very labor-intensive process of that metal being squished together with 50,000 pounds of force over a almost 80-year period. So it was a real labor of love, and what we have to show for it is a functional track, but there was a lot that went into it beyond that. So a lot of people worked very hard on that. And you can also see an example of the tile restoration work that we did, where we've branded our tile as well. On the left, we're looking at a newly restored east weight room attached to the swim gym. It's a beautiful branded space down to the speckles on the floor. The speckles on the floor are very close to our BHHS orange, number FF5F00. So we tried very hard to explain that to their vendor. In the center, we can see a revamped east weight room attached to the swim gym. We were able to restore the original floor. When we pulled the old flooring up, we had this beautiful original hardwood floor, and it restored just magnificently. And finally, on the right, we were looking at the restored wheel assemblies that the retractable floor rolls on. And I'm just going to speak to the assemblies just for a moment, because I want to put some perspective in what kind of work that takes. So first of all, the space that wheel assembly resides in is about 30 inches of clearance. So there's really human beings that get under there to work on these things have to be either on their knees or their bellies or their backs in order to facilitate working on those. Additionally, those wheel assemblies are much like what you would see on a train car. They each weigh 1,250 pounds. And we reconstructed all the axles and bearings out of titanium, so they're going to last a lifetime. Finally, the floor actually weighs 50,000 pounds. It has 1 inch of clearance, and so the people that worked on those things had to jack the floor up and then remove those 1,250-pound units, get them upstairs, and to be able to work on them. So it's what you see is a nice, clean wheel assembly, but the amount of work that went into that was just phenomenal. It took a lot of creative effort, and it was very expensive. Finally, I'll just make a mention of the wheels. What we used to have in the swim gym was metal wheels on metal tracks, which is one of the reasons we were suffering from corrosion and wear. But that was the technology in the 30s, and so that's what we had. What we've done is we've had special casters made out of a polymer material that will never wear. It'll support the weight of the floor, and now what we have is much like a skateboard wheel riding on a metal track. So it's quiet, it's smooth, it'll never corrode, and it's just a big, big change. So. Sorry I spent a little extra time on that one, but it's such a big deal, and no one will ever know. They're under the floor, you never see them, but so much went into that, and I'm very proud of the people that worked on that. Throughout the projects, we have worked to capture our branding while maintaining the historical correctness of our buildings, and my hope is that the work we have just completed in the swim gym highlights and demonstrates the respect we have for the resources we are provided and the patience we are granted. We work very hard to get it right. Moving on to although the swim gym is a hard act to follow, many other great things are happening around the district as well. We recently restored the chiller that serves the annex building. This will improve the indoor air quality and comfort of students and staff. At Hawthorne, we just completed stage 1 of the D building air handler restoration. More work shall be completed in the summer of '23. Although Hawthorne may seem like it did not get a lot of attention, many other large non-deferred maintenance projects were completed. We just recently completed a D building restoration to include the entire library, MPR, and other basement areas, in addition to the book room, IT room, and common corridors in the D building. We also replaced about 200 feet of sewer line in the north field. We replaced a drive shaft in the cooling tower. We conducted a boiler restoration, and we installed 1 new HVAC system in a dedicated classroom. In recent years, Horace Mann has been modernized to include a new B building, which has afforded us the opportunity to operate that site without a deferred maintenance backlog. Accordingly, Horace Mann has received limited deferred maintenance resources for 2021. However, on the left is a picture of one example of some of the resources we spent, which was the auditorium doors that were recently restored. Beverly Vista has also received considerable modernization resources and has only a small deferred maintenance backlog. Most major mechanical systems are in good shape. To the center and right are a couple of pictures representing new floor installations in the C and E buildings at Beverly Vista. And our new flooring systems are stain resistant, easy to maintain, and require no wax or harsh chemicals. The new products will allow us to redirect human resources that would otherwise be needed to maintain maintenance-intensive floors. We recently restored the south planters at Beverly Vista, replacing dated, unattractive materials that were interfering with building maintenance. We specially selected drought-tolerant, attractive plants that are also branded in that they have deep green foliage and white flowers. I cannot guarantee that it is BVMS Green 00541D. We tried it though. Now I'd like to talk to you about our plans and goals for 21 and 22. We will be installing strategically placed roof railing and tie-off systems in various locations district-wide in order to achieve modern roof safety best practices. At Beverly Hills High, we will be restoring our freight elevator. This elevator is the workhorse of our elevator fleet and supports many district-wide operations such as custodial and food services. We'll also be doing some additional tree maintenance at the high school. At Beverly Vista, we will renovate an area of asphalt that has reached the end of its useful life. We will paint the B building exterior along with flooring and paint refreshes in the classrooms. We will also be restoring functionality to the interior quad lighting with an LED retrofit. The top picture we are looking at represents the areas we will be applying slurry and striping to at Beverly Vista. They include the lunch areas, pathway between the courts, and the play courts. The bottom picture is a shot of the lower asphalt area I described in the last slide. It needs more serious intervention and is slated for either a grind and overlay process or complete replacement. We will also be devoting some resources to the annex classrooms and common areas. Hawthorne is also scheduled for flooring replacements and a paint refresh in the main building, cafeteria, kinder areas, and some classrooms. Horace Mann C building is slated for floor replacements and interior and exterior paint work. The high school is scheduled for a boiler plant replacement. All 7 boilers are in need of replacement. We're going to need to conduct a replacement in the summer of 21-22, and that will bleed into the, that will begin the process and it'll be completed in the summer of 22-23. It's going to be a complex and involved process, but the good news is that 4 modern boilers will replace the work that the 7 that used to be in service for that building. The new system will be more efficient and cost effective to operate. The years of 2022 and 2023 through 2024-25 target projects will be less mechanically focused. The years 22 through 25 will see us caught up on our deferred maintenance backlog. We will be focused on completing projects listed on the 5-year plan, which consist primarily of interior-exterior paint projects and flooring replacements district-wide. A well-funded, board-approved 5-year deferred maintenance plan, combined with a successful bond program, has set the district up to be able to operate our properties without the burden of a deferred maintenance backlog. This puts us in a uniquely positive position as a district as it relates to regular and deferred maintenance practices. So long as we continue with aggressive general and preventative maintenance, a deferred maintenance backlog will be a thing of our past. I take the district's mission and vision very seriously and have tried to model and manage my departments in a manner that supports our mission and vision by providing safe, compliant, and quality school facilities. This next slide is an indication of what I call our school report card. Actually, it's developed through an outside agency, and it's developed through our outside inspections that we do. And you can see in 2019, our scores were fair, good, fair, and fair. In 2020, we were fair, good, fair, and fair, and now all of our schools are in the good category. You can see that even though we're in the mid and upper 90 percentiles as far as no deficiencies, it's still only good. The exemplary rating actually only comes in when you're past the 98 percentile, which is something that we're in pursuit of. The slide actually represents a progression of our site maintenance improvements, and the facility inspection tool, or FIT report, helps us address areas in which we need to remain compliant. It is part of our school accountability report card, or SARC, process. As you can see from our ratings, are continually getting better, and we are committed to that continued trend. Work orders can be things that are as simple as tightening some loose screws to addressing a clogged bathroom fixture, which may end up becoming a major sewer issue. Some of our trades, like electricians, HVAC technicians, our carpenter, locksmith, or plumbers, may end up doing hundreds of cases per year, whereas our painter may do 40 or 50 because they're more long-term projects that take days or if not weeks to complete. We're fortunate to have some skilled tradesmen on our team in the M&O department to be able to complete these tasks. And there are many areas of our schools that have strict compliance guidelines. We conduct regular routine preventative maintenance on key components such as fire life safety, elevators, kitchens, HVAC, and all mechanical systems and more. In a challenging environment where we are restricted to using the low bidder, it is a constant struggle to maintain quality and cost control. We work very hard to make sure our vendors deliver quality work in a timely manner. We'll talk a little bit about our 2021 objectives. One of our goals in M&O for the 2021 school year was to implement year one of the board-approved 5-year deferred maintenance plan and to develop a district preventative maintenance plan. We have had great success in both areas. I summarized year one of our deferred maintenance plan earlier, and the next few slides are examples of the depth that we are going in order to identify key components and then develop a proper and thorough preventative maintenance regimen for those components. The following are not boilerplate documents, but are customized documents related to our equipment. I'm actually going to breeze through these pretty quickly, but I want to show you what we've been working with. This is an example of our preventative maintenance program that we're developing for our major HVAC components. I've been working with not only our technicians and our outside vendors, but I also have engaged HVAC engineers to go through, and we have crawled through every nook and cranny, every air handler, every boiler, every mechanical room, and we're literally going through our equipment and creating a very detailed specification that starts right from the scheduling all the way to the end of the project, so that we can define very clearly what preventative maintenance we need to do on these very complex pieces of equipment. Our district has some of the most diverse HVAC equipment that I've ever seen in any facilities, ranging from the oldest to the very newest in technologies. And we need to have a very rigorous and effective preventive maintenance program to prevent unnecessary breakdowns. So the next couple of slides are just representative of the different specifications that I've had drawn up for our chillers and our boilers and our air handlers, all of which are key to our continuing open schools in a safe manner, and so that we can maintain the indoor air quality. I'm just going to fly through those. They're just more of the same. Not the same, but those are all detailed specifications. I use these specifications so when we go and we engage vendors to price this out, I can give them these detailed specifications so that we get apples to apples pricing when we do put stuff out to either put it out to bid or take informal quotes. M&O successfully completed over 90% of the projects listed on year one of the 5-year deferred maintenance plan. Incomplete projects are either underway or in planning stages. As part of our 2021 and 2022 objectives, we are focused on system documentation, functionality, and conducting preventative maintenance regimens and keeping maintenance records. Properly conducted preventative maintenance will ensure our properties operate as intended with minimal breakdowns and unexpected events. We are meeting our 2021 through 2023 objectives by aggressively implementing years 2 and 3 of our board-approved 5-year deferred maintenance plan. Specifications are being drawn. We will be going out to bid on many upcoming projects, and procurement and execution are underway in other areas. We have also been conducting training and staff development meetings. The following slides are examples of some of what we are doing. I'm not sure what I hit there. I think so. Thank you. So on this slide, what we're looking at is the list of some of the training sessions that we've conducted and will be conducting this year. They're focused on employee safety and compliance. We're actually working with Keenan, our insurance carrier, and they have very good training programs set up that are, and we use one of their trainers to come out, and it's a great staff development tool. This next slide is just a sample of what we've updated. We've updated and refreshed our custodial training handbooks. Our custodial teams have been working under a lot of pressure this year in order to make sure we get ready, stay ready, and serve the community as intended. They have worked through tough, evolving circumstances with regularity and have generally succeeded at everything we have thrown at them. Our custodial staffs have done an incredible job rising to the occasion. This following slide may be one of our most important slides, in that it talks about the closeout and training process for our B1 and B2 properties, which will be the example that we set moving forward for B3, B4, and El Rodeo. One of the most important things that we need to do as a district is to be able to operate and function properly once we inherit our new buildings. And so our M&O staff has been actively coordinating with TCDS, our bond manager, and Pro West in an effort to facilitate training on all new components and systems in our modernized buildings. B1, B2 training is now complete and includes the following: system orientation, component locations, operational information, troubleshooting information, warranty coverage and periods, and vendor information for warranty support and future needs. Our closeout procedures will ensure that the district has clear operational knowledge and support mechanisms in place to support our facilities into the future. The auditors also wanted to see this coming from us. They wanted to see how the M&O department is inheriting our properties and what we're doing to ensure that we can properly maintain, that we understand the warranty periods, that we have contact with the vendors under the warranty period. And so we've worked very hard with TCDS to develop a program that's going to be very successful for the district long term. I'm pretty proud of that. The next slide is just an example of one of the training schedules, and it's just another example of the collaborative efforts between Maintenance and Operations Department and TCDS and Pro West. This is going over our training schedule. It's a draft training schedule for our HVAC systems, our plumbing systems, our partition walls, electrical security systems, and more of the major components. But this is just an example, and it takes a lot, as you know, everybody here is so busy, and it takes a lot to actually coordinate the efforts to make these schedules happen and to get the teams together. And finally, this next slide is just an example of the actual training agenda for one of our trainings. So our training sessions are thorough and comprehensive, and the M&O department is dedicated to learning our new buildings so that they can properly serve the community for generations to come. M&O staffing has been a bit challenging this year. We had a lot of retirees and other people out for various reasons. Throughout it all, our present team members have risen to the occasion at every turn. So currently, we have 3 custodial positions open, 1 groundskeeper position open, and 1 journeyman painter position open. Like many organizations, we are struggling to fill our vacant positions, but I will continue to work with our HR department until all vacant positions are filled. Challenges and accomplishments. Well, it's been a challenging year for everybody, every department, and I think our challenges have been the same as everybody else. COVID has presented the biggest challenges for us the last 18 months. Through it all, M&O was present, focused, and dedicated to the cause. We successfully completed countless projects, have grown as professionals and individuals, and effectively implemented deferred, preventative, and general maintenance at a very high level. The M&O teams remained flexible and pivoted to meet every challenge that arose in our paths. I have a few acknowledgments I'd like to make before I wrap this up. There are so many people that support my department. Under the strong leadership of our CBO, Mr. Wade Roach, I would like to acknowledge the efforts of our accounts payable, purchasing, payroll, and fiscal services staff. The work my department does would be impossible without their support. These productive people get very busy when our department is as active as it is. My gratitude goes out to our entire M&O team for their unwavering support of our school programs. And finally, I would really like to thank our facilities administrative assistant, Shirley Vasquez, for her hard work assisting with the preparation of this presentation. Shirley truly is the backbone of the facilities department. And finally, I'd like to thank the community, the Beverly Hills Board of Education, staff, students, and district leadership for their support of our ongoing efforts to make BHUSD an incredible place to learn and work. And that's the end of my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Wow. Well, we'll start with Mr. Raymer.
I would like to say comprehensive does not even come close to the level of detail and the massive scope that was shown in this presentation. So I really thank you for taking the time to both put together this presentation and give it to us today. It gives me definitely a better idea of all the work that M&O does, and I know it goes out to our community as well. So thank you very much for that. I don't have any questions, but keep up the great work. I see it around campus, and I know a lot of other people notice it too. So thank you.
Dr. Stern.
Thank you, Mr. Haas, for such an amazing presentation. I really think that on all of our campuses, when we walk through, especially some of the newer buildings and structures with the swim gym, there's a sense of pride of being part of an amazing place. And I know the challenges are great, especially with such old buildings that you're working with and many moving parts. And I think it's amazing. And just one question I have is, how are you dealing with like ventilation and can you comment on that at this time? That is something a lot of community members are asking about.
We have an extraordinarily aggressive HVAC maintenance and repair program. We've reached tremendous milestones in the last 2.5 years. We started with many systems that were in need of substantial improvement. It really started with going through each system and evaluating it and understanding what was going on with it or what wasn't going on with it, and then coming up with a repair plan for that. And with the types and complexity of our systems, they all tie into each other. So for instance, although we worked very aggressively for 2 years to fix every leaking valve and every damper that wasn't working and every light that wasn't lighting, and I'm just giving simple examples, as we brought up our energy management system and began to exercise some of the valves and things. So that's what happens with an energy management system. There's valves and dampers and parts and all kinds of moving things that you set and that you open and you exercise. And as we're recapturing those things into our energy management system, we're finding other deficiencies for which we immediately act upon. So since school has started, we've been able to meet the CDC guidelines of having all of our systems up and running, having MERV 13 filtration almost everywhere, and that's basically where it fits. There are some units where it doesn't fit, and it calls for us putting MERV 13 where we can, and every place else we've got maximum filtration. We've got our systems up and running before people get here and after they leave, which helps clear air, and we also have every system that can take in outside air opened up to bring in 90% maximum outside air.
Good.
So that's the status of all of our systems. However, and I'm sure you all hear about it on a daily basis, anything can happen. Today we had a chiller go down. And you know, when we get some calls, let's say from a Beverly Vista like today, where we probably had 24 rooms that were down, even though that's a major thing, I actually know it's a very simple thing. Something like a fuse or something popped, the chiller, I'm making a simple example, but the chiller went down. The guys went there and within a few minutes were able to get the chiller back up, and all those rooms just came back up to speed. So we'll always have, you know, just like we do at our homes or with our vehicles, the mechanical systems are heavily used. They're not all new. We'll always have challenges with it, but our HVAC team that works here, the two gentlemen that work here, are very, very aggressive in what they do. They're very responsive. They have their hands full, certainly, and I supplement them limitlessly with outside help as necessary. And in addition to that, with the creation of our deferred maintenance regimens that we've created, the 5 slides that I showed you earlier with all that detailed information, we will get to a point in the next year or so where we won't have breakdowns. It's going to be like a car you take in and have your oil changed, and we're getting to that point very quickly. We've invested a lot of time and, you know, with board support and leadership support for funding for all that. But our HVAC systems have come a long way in the last couple of years. Our teams have come a long way in the last couple of years, and we are poised for, I hate to use the word trouble-free, but we're going to be very close to trouble-free operation moving forward and very soon.
Mr. Margot.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the report. Since this is a voting item, I wanted to ask you, Ken and Wade, is how this plan will fit in with the budget. I know we've approved a 3-year budget, but this is a 5-year plan, so I wonder if that's been discussed regarding the outlying years.
So yes, Trustee Margot, the multi-year, 3-year projection, all these budgets have been approved by the board. And as we go out into year 4 and 5, as we adopt our second interim and our budget for next year, we'll add those costs into the budgets. But these are all budgeted, and we're comfortable at the size of the budget for both maintenance and operations and deferred maintenance.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Wells?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your presentation. It was really wonderful for me to hear you present all of these different items and have such an appreciation for how much work that you've accomplished. I know it's been a really challenging year, and I really appreciate that you have been such a support for us to be able to have our schools open and safe, and I thank you for that. And I have to say also that since joining the board, I hear everyone sing your praises, and that you're such a welcome addition to this team, and you've made such an impact. So I really appreciate that, and I do see the pride that comes with all the work that's getting done, and I think that's really wonderful. And I also like that you presented some of the work that people don't see or can appreciate, and how much time and money and effort goes into to modernizing the floor and refurbishing that, and also thinking about how we can have lower maintenance in the future with those items. So I really appreciate that, and how you've prioritized all of this work as well to get to where we want to be. And my only question that I have for you, and it's really maybe a challenge, is how do we prioritize also the work that we see, and it's really probably more superficial, but I think it's very important for the quality of the feeling of being in the schools. The items that are pretty much the things you see on the SARC report, where they identify where there are deficiencies. So how do we prioritize those things so that when we walk through, for example, Hawthorne, we see that everything's in working order and everything looks fresh and as well as it can under the conditions, so that we have a good report across all of the categories for all the schools.
So it's a very involved process. Prioritizing, we always start with fire life safety. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the paint's peeling, it does, but we have to address our safety issues first.
Right.
So those are first and foremost. And then I look at the projects based on how much impact it's going to have. So, we have limited human resource here as far as in-house work, and we have many, many projects planned. So, for instance, last year's FIT report, our office administrator took the report and we issued work orders for each and every one of those things. I think it was 650 some odd work orders. It was a tremendous amount of work orders, which the guys my teams are still working on it, because that backlog of work actually has to be caught up, and then we have current things that happen every day. So it's a big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But prioritizing really takes place when we look at the fire life safety aspect of things, and then we start moving into what's going to be the most impact for people. The great news is by the end of this next year, we're going to be done with a lot of our major mechanical retrofits and things, and be able to really focus on cosmetic things like floor replacements and paint things or paint refreshes. And so we're going to see a big cosmetic improvement throughout the sites. And that cosmetic improvement is also translate into healthier environments, into just the way you feel when you walk through an environment and it's fresh and refreshed, and the way it smells and things like that. So that's how we prioritize. It starts with fire life safety and moves into the highest impact items, and we just work as hard and diligently as possible to keep up. It's very difficult to keep up. We started with a big maintenance backlog in 2019 of I think around 1,950, close to 2,000 cases. We've got it chipped down to about 350, but there's an ebb and a flow. Like when school starts, we've just recently got 200 that came in that I have to sort out. So it's a long, involved process. It's never going to end, and we just have to. The important part is to remain focused on prioritizing and executing. That's where we start making, because you can actually become paralyzed when you see, you look at all the things that have to be done. If you don't really focus on the things that are most important, then you never make any progress. But
Right.
It is an involved process. It's an ongoing process, and it'll actually never stop as long as we're aggressively pursuing it.
Is there any value in expanding your department? So that
Then you need to talk to Mr. Wade.
I'd like to talk to Wade.
Mr. Roach could speak to that.
Because I think, we talk about the schools and wanting to increase our enrollment and to, hold on to our enrollment. And I do think that there is a value in what the schools feel like, and when you see those things, and I know that you have to prioritize, and there's only so much manpower, and you're doing an amazing job, and can only do as much as you can, and you've done a ton, and I only hear really wonderful feedback about the work that you've accomplished, and you can see it in your report and where you're going. But simultaneously, I would say that it is important in many other ways to be able to have resources for those things. And I don't know, it's a bigger budgeting issue, I'm sure, and the resources, but I would challenge our board to look at how we can improve that, so that it better enables you to do even more if that's possible, but given the right support so that you could, because I think that would be ideal for us in our district.
I understand and I appreciate that, and we have had a tremendous amount of support from district leadership. They really understand the department and help support. I comment to my boss all the time about how supported I feel. We're funded well. We're supported in the approval processes for the things that we need to get done. And certainly looking at the departmental staffing levels would be a larger discussion, I think more appropriate for Mr. Roach to discuss with you folks, and certainly I would give him some feedback. But,
right. I also would like to say how wonderful it is to hear the coordination and collaboration that you have with all the other areas, with Team Concepts and as well with Wade and with the athletic department. It really seems very collaborative and a really good working relationship, and I really appreciate that, and I wanted to acknowledge everyone for that.
Well, thank you, and it's a village. We all work so hard together. We work hard as individuals, but we're actually very powerful as a team when we collaborate like this. We all have great ideas, and when you're supported by the board and by funding, and we have a team that wants to collaborate, nothing can beat us. So
yeah, you get that sense, so I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Hi there. Hey, Ken.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Mr. Haas. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, first of all, the big point that needs to be made and the takeaway from this amazing presentation is that it's great that we have so much money to put into these buildings, but if we don't take care of them, we end up in a really bad position. So we need to always prioritize deferred maintenance. Bigger problems happen if we don't do that, but you have taken on this beast of a project and you have conquered it and tamed it and presented it in such a clear, logical, and concise way. It is just remarkable to me how effective you've been able to be and totally optimize the time when the students weren't on campus to do the projects that otherwise would have been an impediment. It's just mind-boggling. I'm so proud that this group of people in the prior board and this board got to bring you on because you are such a stellar representation of the head of this department. You have just made so many incredible changes. So I have to thank you. The work is marvelous. The whole community should feel very comforted that you're helping steer the ship and steward the ship of taking care of these buildings as they're being built and making sure that all of the infrastructure and training is built around it. The people don't realize how much it goes into that, how it's not just, road, it doesn't just get set up by itself. A lot of people don't even really think about with stuff like this, that training has to go along and there have to be manuals. That is a super labor intensive process. And the fact that you've been able to deliver that in this environment is just fantastic. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I would just like to, I cannot say anything more than what has been said already. You know how I really think that you're an unbelievable person in terms of what you can do. I remember when I first came on the board, I think our maintenance and operations department was floundering. As I recall, it was really not in a good way. And we brought on Mr. Haas, and from that point on, we've had nothing but considerable confidence in what's going forward. And I have always felt that we put our maintenance and operations in good hands. As they say in Allstate, we're in good hands with Ken Haas. What can I say? I also would like to iterate that this presentation was amazing. And I look forward that I have one question that bothered me. You talked about all those boiler plants or those boiler things, and but buildings B1 and B2, weren't there new boiler? What were those buildings? And
Yes, B1 and B2 have their own systems that are independent of the A building and the SDC. So the boiler plant I'm referring to is specifically serves the A building and the SDC and is located in our tunnel.
okay, all right. So I just want to make sure that we're not talking about that. That figured that no.
Nothing on B1.
Okay, and I just can't tell you what a wonderful presentation, and your professionalism and the way you go about things is magnificent, and I want to thank you. And if there are no further comments, I think we can call for the question, which was to approve the 5-year deferred maintenance plan. So I will start with you, Mr. Raymer.
Yes.
Dr. Stern.
Yes.
Mr. Margot.
Yes.
Mrs. Wells.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, and again, thank you.
Thank you.
Tremendous.
I would just like to make a final comment. I am so humble and grateful to be here and the support that you folks have given me. I would also like to say, in all the thank yous that you've just been handing to me, I'm incredibly supported by a maintenance and operations team that stands behind me unwaveringly. And without their work, without their support, without their efforts every single day, I can do nothing. So thank you to the
Well,
board.
you brought
for
that
supporting
to them too.
It's a team effort, I can tell you that. So I really appreciate everybody I'm surrounded with, including the board and our district leadership who is supporting these efforts. Without that support, it can't happen. So thank you, and I'm humbled, and I appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I will move for an amendment number 3 to the contract with NASDAQ International Inc. for Armed Security Agent Services. Can I have a second?
A second.
Is that you, Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions, discussion? Anybody
Yes.
want?
Are you going around or?
Well, I was waiting to see if anybody would. Okay, Mr. Raymer, any discussion?
None for me.
Okay, Dr. Stern? No. Mr. Margot?
Yeah, I had a concern because I noticed that the amendment is removing Don Blake from the contract completely, who was somebody that was a set of eyes to review certain aspects that are related to the security program, which he and his team are currently overseeing. So it's a concern for me to take all of that away. I don't have any problem letting the people that are included in the amendment, but I also think that Don should be privy to some of the information from NASDAQ to coordinate with his security team until the point that our security program is up, running fully and self-sufficient.
Okay.
And
Lena?
Mr. Margot, I can answer that. So all of the information that was provided before will still be provided and shared. This isn't, we're not having private meetings with NASDAQ. This is all part of our overall security program. So information is shared. All of the documents, all of the information, everything is shared. It just standardizes and aligns to really more payment through the district office.
Okay, so it won't hinder the operation of the security program.
Not in any way.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, Dr. Brady.
Mrs. Wells?
I have no comments.
Okay, Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
No comment.
And I have no comments, so I will call for the question. Mr. Raymer?
Yes.
Dr. Stern?
Yes.
Mrs. Wells? No, Mr. Margot? He said yes. Mrs. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
Mrs. Marcus is a yes. Vote is 6-0. Okay, we're going to be discussing now items 12A and 12B, which has been very much been asked to put on the agenda. And I will start the discussion. Perhaps Dr. Breggy, want to say a few words before we start that discussion?
Sure. So I think just for the public, just kind of remind everybody, we don't have an opportunity like people think that we do, that We get to have conversations like this every day. It's not often we're able to call a meeting and begin these discussions, and a lot certainly has happened and has been presented with what's happening in our community within just even the last few weeks. So I want to just kind of kick this off by saying, something that even throughout our reporting that we really haven't focused on, in today's day 8 of being back to school. And, we're already looking at, positive cases in our schools, total of 2 staff and 9 students. And this is the 8th day, of school. Beyond that, because I think that that's obviously something that people look at, and that's why we have that on our dashboard. But thinking about, going into the future, we know we're going to have more positive cases, and I think that it's just important to, think about, other ways that we have a responsibility to ensure that we are keeping our schools open for in-person learning. And so another way to look at, we've talked about the close contacts, we've shared that information, what happens, here's the student view, here's the parent view. But I really want the board and the community to realize that it's day 8, and already we've had, just at the high school, 133 close contacts. And so I just want to put into perspective that, we have an environment that is disruptive. We're putting, by no fault, we're following the health order, but we're really placing 133 students, healthy students, to be at home who are testing negative, but they are close contacts. So there has to be more that we do. We've talked about layers of protection for a year and a half, and to kick off this conversation about what can we do more to ensure that we're going to keep our schools open, keeping in mind that we're going to continuously have a disruptive environment when we're constantly putting out students that are close contacts.
Okay, we'll start this discussion then with you, Mr. Raymer.
When I was looking at this agenda, I was somewhat caught off guard because I'd never seen professional and official business before, so I am rather excited to be able to discuss this with all of you. I know it is a big topic that has been on a lot of people's minds in the past couple of months, and now that we have reached a point where it is possible to implement some of the things that we're discussing, it is very important to talk about it. So I'd say that one of the biggest challenges is, well, I personally am very much pro testing for those who are not vaccinated and mandatory vaccinations for those who are eligible. It presents a lot of issues as what to do with those students who will not get vaccinated and who are not vaccinated currently. I know Culver City Unified took a very black and white approach in that they said, if you are not vaccinated, you will be attending online, and if you are, then you have the right to come in person. While I do believe that that is a possible solution, the going back to hybrid is something that no one wants to do, staff, students included. I know that while hybrid was what we had to do in the moment, it definitely is not an ideal way to learn. So we have to find some other way to get around the issue of those students who are unvaccinated and those who will not get vaccinated. It's definitely a tough topic, so I'm interested in hearing what some of the other board members have to say. One thing that was on my mind was the timeline as to when we would be able to roll out. In my mind, please, Dr. Bragg, correct me if there is a set timeline that we have to follow if this is implemented. But in my mind, the earliest feasible way to implement the mandatory vaccinations would be to have it for second semester and say that if you are not vaccinated by the start of second semester, here are your options, and if you are, then you may continue in-person instruction. I'm not sure the feasibility of that or if second semester is the best place to set the deadline, but I think that does give enough time for people to make proper accommodations, especially if they are in the group that decides not to get vaccinated, even though I would highly recommend that everyone does. I was vaccinated in possibly the second week after I was eligible, and I would highly recommend that everyone 12 and up does as well, because it's free and everyone can, and it is better to be safe. But I believe that is all I have to say for the moment. I imagine that I'll come back in and comment again once the discussion somewhat develops further. So I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raymer. Dr. Stern.
First of all, I don't want to underestimate the large amount of work that the administration and staff have done. I mean, Dr. Breggy has been very forthcoming in apprising us daily, if not hourly, of different developments. I know that administration and staff did not necessarily sign up for this side job, but it's definitely a role that has been, really asking you to be very flexible, and teachers as well. And I don't underestimate that. One of my main hats is a psychologist, and there's two things that come to mind that I really want to put out there. And that is that we really want our kids to be back in school. However, sometimes people, as we are human, are less than accurate reporters with some of their the status of their kids. Kids as well can also sometimes not be the best reporters of their status on a given morning, how they're feeling, whether they're feeling well, whether they're not feeling well. And in all societies, we see this type of behavior where people aren't necessarily accurate, faithful reporters for some of these screening questions. As we are charged as a public agency to maintain the health and safety in the best, most reliable, accurate possible way to mitigate and to isolate possible further exposures, I really think that there has to be a multi-pronged level and approach to keeping us all safe. And it goes beyond just the screener questions that a lot of kids can just, as you pointed out, Eli, say no, 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 and then there you go. So with that said, I think that there will be, a further evolution of this conversation, but I just wanted to share my thoughts. Thank you.
Mr. Margot.
Thank you. So I have a lot to say on this. I'll try to make it brief. It's late and I'm back east and I'm very tired. First of all, we don't know when public health is going to change rules around us. Dr. Breggy spelled out everything he can with up-to-the-minute data today. Tomorrow it could be different. So the community, all of us have to be aware of whatever we set our mind to, it's subject to change, right? So we can have a discussion tonight, robust discussion, or so far it hasn't actually been too robust, but it might get there. And then we figure the next day, the county health steps in and says, oh, you know what? No, now we're going to mandate this. Now we're going to mandate that. We're not going to mandate something. So it's our job as trustees, though, to say, all right, we have to do two things. We have to make sure our kids are safe. We have to make sure they're educated. We have to do it in that order, right? That's what we do in this district. That's what all of our charges. Right now, our administration, our teachers are spending more time managing the idiosyncrasies of COVID than educating. And that should upset everybody. That should upset everybody to the point that what can we do to try to take this COVID nightmare off of our plate? That should be the approach, right? What are we doing as a district, everything that we can do to make sure that our students can stay in the classroom and learn? I don't think we're there yet. I think we've heard from a lot of parents tonight, and they all feel differently about this subject, but an underlying message is their kids' education. So I think we have to do more in response to masks. I believe they're all mandated, but we may want to consider putting mask mandate outside unless you're doing physical activities like PE and sports, because that really is a bear to do that with a mask on. And I'll say this, when people started getting vaccinated early in the year, when that started happening, that's when cases dropped, hospitalizations dropped, and then it slowed down. Then the vaccination slowed down. What happened? everything started going back up again. And like a giant juggernaut pendulum, we're moving in the other direction. And it's gonna take a while before we can, even with the approval of the FDA approval yesterday, it's gonna take a while for that to take effect and for things to start going back the other way. So things are not gonna happen instantly, we know that. I would advocate for, at this point, one, definitely mandating vaccines 16 and older within the boundaries of what we as a school district are allowed to do. But I do want to make the case and say, if we are going to get in the business, like you said, Dr. Breggy, if we're going to get in the business of public health, and you being a public health officer right now, right, and not superintendent of a school district that should be educating people, if we're going to really be serious about public health, we better get serious about what we are serving our children in the cafeteria and what foods are available to our kids, because otherwise we are hypocrites. And I need to say this, and I need it to sink into people, okay? And I'm not telling people, no, you can't have a Twinkie, you can't have a Hershey bar. It's not my job to tell that. But if as a school district, we are going to say what is healthier for kids, we need to stand behind those words and re-examine what we are feeding our children, okay? Because we know what the right and wrong foods are, and we better get on this, because I can't advocate for saying that we need to mandate a vaccine for our students and not say we shouldn't be serving them food that we know is unhealthy for them. You can't do one without the other. It's wrong. And it's, by the way, if you study the cases in this country of COVID, majority of cases are people who tend to be unhealthy. Unhealthy people tend to be people who don't, there are immunocompromised people, but there are people who just don't take care of themselves and don't eat right, don't have a proper diet. And it is correlated. It is correlated. So while I'm on my soapbox here, I would advocate for looking at both. If we're going to move one, we move the needle on the other one. Beverly Hills was one of the first cities to ban smoking, right? We banned it everywhere we could, because we knew that secondhand smoke was damaging. And people were welcoming of that because they understood the health implications. And that is an example of a community coming together to do what's healthier for the masses. I went on the LA County Public Health site today, and just to double check what vaccines are required to enter a public school in LA County. Several shots of I think it's 5 different vaccines, and you need several doses of each one, which are combined, and medicine has been able to do that. So it doesn't seem like as many shots, but it's a lot of shots. So for all of those people in our district that have enrolled their students in our district, you have already given your children vaccines, and you've given a lot of them, okay? So if it comes to for the reason of protecting the public health, that's the reason that public schools are requiring vaccines, because they understand they want to stop the spread of certain diseases. And lo and behold, they did, for the most part, right? We've eradicated polio and smallpox and diphtheria and tuberculosis and all of those things. So you can't say that adding the COVID vaccine to that list is such a shocking thing. It's par for the course with running public education. So I do support looking at absolutely from this point on getting to a point where we are within our parameters, can mandate the vaccine 16 and up, anybody in the district. But we understand that most of our district population our student population is not 16. It's under 16. So that brings up the testing. And I know, I'm sure my colleagues have a lot to say about that, but I'm not 100% sure, because when I had COVID, I tested negative. And I still had COVID. So I'm not 100% sure of how the testing will work in a way that will benefit us. I think that needs to be looked at. But whatever adjustments can be made to our testing procedures to help eliminate the number of cases and protect our students and keep our education consistent, I will get behind. So thank you very much, and I will turn the floor back to the dais.
Thank you very much, Mr. Margot. Mrs. Wells.
Well, I've thought about this a lot, and I think it's a very difficult situation for us in our school and in all schools when we're dealing with a vaccine that's new and of the coronavirus, and, we don't know where it goes necessarily, but we do have very good information about how the vaccines are one of the best ways to combat the virus and its variants. And I really believe that now that the vaccines have been approved by the FDA for 16 and up, that it is, it takes away a lot of that uncertainty. And I think that everyone should consider getting the vaccine that is able to get the vaccine, be it 12 and up or 16 and up. We are so fortunate to be in a place where we live, where vaccines are available and they're free. And we can, I implore our district to also look into having vaccine clinics again at the schools to make it even more accessible, because I think that as a district, we should encourage vaccines and being vaccinated. Whether or not we mandate vaccines at this point, I am not certain. I'm not certain about when is the right time to mandate those vaccines. Certainly, I wouldn't mandate it unless it was FDA approved. So for me, it wouldn't be unless it's 16 and above. And I really suspect that we are going to get a mandate from the state eventually that will be mandating the vaccine. So I'm not clear on where I stand at this point to mandate the vaccines, because I don't want the focus to be about fighting about mandating vaccines or not, when we have many other measures as well that we can also put into place. We have teachers that are vaccinated and tested, will be tested, and if teachers are not vaccinated, then they will be tested more often. And we have testing in place now, and we're testing close contacts. And I think that as we measure what's happening in our schools, and even as well being more proactive, we can add more testing in the places where it's appropriate. And I also believe that we can increase the use of masks, and we should consider that as well as we're looking at the environment that we're in. Overriding, we want to have schools that are safe, and we want to be able to have them safe for our teachers and our students, and we want to be able to teach and keep our schools open. And I think that should be our focus in looking at how can we best do that. So I would definitely advocate for looking into increasing the use of masks, especially, and I hate to say this, but for the younger children that don't have a vaccine as even an option. So not necessarily for sports or when they're being really active, but when the kids are hanging around outside, I think we should consider that. And also really trying to enforce more social distancing to the extent that we can when the kids are outside or in spaces where that's available, so that we can still have full classes and full days, but really looking at trying to mitigate those risks, almost in the same ways as when we first went back into school, and trying to put some of those things back into place. And to be fair, we're also dealing with a different variant, which is far more contagious. So, we have to be nimble, and we have to be able to react, and we also have to be proactive. I'm just not certain at this point if mandating the vaccines, certainly it won't happen immediately. So it's a question of, do we pick a time period in the future that we also believe will more than likely become mandated at that time anyway. So that's what I have to say for now.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Okay, so as I think I mentioned, if I haven't, I'll mention it again. When LAUSD did their baseline testing, 3,255 students tested positive. Even if half of them were asymptomatic, they all are shedding the virus. Whether they've been vaccinated, unvaccinated, it doesn't really matter. If they're testing positive, they're shedding the virus. With the current ratio of how contagious this virus is, that means that 29,295 students are exposed, even if it's only one day, to those positive cases in a school district. And by the next day, by a multiple of 9, that's 263,655 students that are exposed. And not all of them are going to get sick. But so far, in 8 days in our district, we've had 9 students positive and 2 staff members. So it's clear that testing would help us narrow down who the students are that are negative, and isolate, hopefully, those who are positive so that we don't continue to experience this kind of spread. The amount of burden that has been placed on districts, in my opinion, is really unfair. We are not public health agencies. We are educational institutions, and our admin team is doing an unbelievable job of trying to take this on, but it's become a full-time job. And we need more help from the community and from parents and from students alike to be honest and to be forthright and to be considerate of your community members and be on the safe side. And if you have symptoms, don't come to school. If your child has symptoms and you're so concerned you go and get them a COVID test, do not bring them to school until you get your results. That's crazy talk. That cannot possibly happen if we're actually talking about wanting to keep our kids and staff safe. And that is literally happening right now. Everyone needs to take a more responsible role if we're going to keep schools open and keep kids in classrooms. And that begins with compulsory testing. If we're requiring our staff to be mandated vaccines and have testing if they're not vaccinated, if that's the way that the state has set it up, why would we require something different of our students? Every student 16 and up should be vaccinated and recommended 12 and up. And everyone, regardless of vaccination status, should be tested on a regular basis because symptoms don't tell the story. And what we're seeing now is even that fever is not an indicator. So how are we supposed to know if people are not always going to be honest, if they're not always sure, if the health screenings aren't always accurate, if we're not testing? We're not going to know. We need to do compulsory testing. And in my opinion, we should mandate vaccines for 16 plus. I believe that's going to happen in the next month anyway. So from my perspective, because I like to be very specific in my position and what my recommendation is, I think we should have compulsory testing in place by September 15th, no later. And I think that we should have mandatory vaccinations in place by September 30th. And hopefully our mandate will coincide with the state's mandate. That's what I think. I just don't see how we are going to get through this. We have students that are being pulled out of class having to test because they've had contact with a positive case. And even the contact tracing, as confident as I am in our admin team, contact tracing is only as good as the memory of the student. If the student doesn't remember 20 kids that they were in contact with, then those 20 kids don't get a call to get tested. So we're relying on unreliable, and I don't mean this as a criticism of our students, human nature. Humans are unreliable in their recall all the time. To set this whole program up for success, we need to do more than depend just on memory and recall. We need evidence, we need facts, we need to test for this disease, for this virus, and clear it from the beginning. And we can't control what kids do outside of Beverly Hills, so obviously testing only once is not going to be helpful. We're going to have testing ongoing because kids are still going to get together without masks socially after school. They're playing sports, they're going to parties and bar mitzvahs and weddings and all of these other things, these life events that are happening. And I'm not saying don't do those things, everyone should do those things, but the only thing we can do to control it, to make sure that our faculty and our students and staff are safe, is to be proactive. And to me, that looks like mandated testing and mandated vaccines. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Well, I've had a lot of time to think about this. I've heard a lot of comments, both pro and con, and so on. And it's almost like we are between a rock and a hard place on this particular very difficult situation. If in a perfect world, I would say with you, Tristan, yes, protest, be very much proactive with testing and proactive with vaccination. But I don't know that I can force that on people that are not willing and then say they can't come to a public school. That's something that makes me very uncomfortable. I would love to be thinking in a real world that we could make our community, the people in the community, so aware of what is right and what is wrong and what they should or should not do. For example, if your child wakes up and says they're not feeling sort of good today, that they keep them home. That they themselves will take it upon themselves to go get tested, that they themselves will go about it and get vaccinated. I'm not sure that we are in a position right now, without the benefit of the state of California or the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health mandating it, that we can actually do it. And I would love to think that we could perhaps, like Mr. Raymer said, put a deadline on it and make it something that we could come up with and give them time to get it. I'm worried about also sometimes the legal issues that might befall us in that, and I don't think anybody's mentioned that tonight. And I'm not sure that our general fund can withstand an onslaught of legal cases that have to do with people who will bring issues to it. As I said, I would love in a perfect world to require everyone to get tested. I would require everyone who's eligible to get vaccinated. But and I think another thing that we need to do is we have to really up our protocols, what the consequences are, things that we can do to maybe get people to go get tested and get to be vaccinated. For example, we know that students who are vaccinated, but unfortunately maybe you have to go and get tested, can come back to school because they have a negative. Whereas a student who is not vaccinated, tests negative, but he's been near somebody, has to be quarantined and cannot come back to school for a certain number of days. We can impress upon people the importance of being vaccinated to prevent that type of thing. The community needs to wake up and find out that if they want to keep their kids in school, they've got to do these things. So at this point, I can't make a decision one way or the other. I'm hoping that we get some direction and that we can start to mandate it. But at this point, I'm not sure that we can go out there and say everybody can be vaccinated or that's eligible in the testing. I would love to, but right at this point, I can't.
President Marcus, can I add something, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I can't subscribe to the theory that I want to wait to see what California or the county is going to do. We are not California and we are not the county. We actually have professed to try to be better than both as a school district and an educational institution. And in doing so, you have to do things first. You have to do things better. You have to do things more creatively. That's how you get to be number one. So I would certainly not want to wait while bureaucrats sit on their hands and try to decide what to do. If we can legally give a vaccine to 16 and older, which, as I mentioned before, is a fraction of our students, I still would do it because we're finding that there are cases that are students above 16 years of age. We are getting cases out of that, and it'll help put a stop to that.
You said one word, though. Excuse me.
My last point is technology. We didn't mention that, but we've invested millions in our infrastructure of technology in our district to exactly be ready for a situation like this. That if we decided to mandate testing and make testing compulsory, and students decide not to test, okay, that's fine. We'll respect that. You can watch from home and we'll set you up on the Zoom. Okay? We invested in the technology to be able to do this, and then therefore can further protect our students who are following protocols, either getting healthy, getting tested, getting vaccinated, whatever it needs to be, and nobody has to miss out on the education. We actually have paid to be able to do that. And I think it's time for us to use the tools that we have at our disposal.
You mentioned one word, though, in there. You said legal. You threw in the word legal. And if you can legally do it.
The FDA has now approved all the vaccines, including the entire list of vaccines that I mentioned on the LA County Public Health site. So, and I think we will have no issue mandating the vaccine for 16 and above. But like we have said, and Tristan has said, that's really not where our problem is going to be. It'll help, but the problem is going to be testing because we can't mandate a vaccine 16 and younger. And that's the majority of our district. So how do you manage that? The only way you can manage that outside of masks, which we already do, but we already see that that's not helping. We're still getting cases. So the last resort is testing. So we could set it up where, hey, we're gonna test. You don't wanna test? We dig that, that's your right. We respect your right. We'll set you up. Here's a little thing called Zoom. Everybody's got a camera. We'll see you in class anyway. Thank you, move on. I don't know why we have to talk about this much, okay? This should be a no-brainer because what we're doing now isn't going to work and we are going to shut down. That's my concern. And nobody wants that.
No,
And I don't want to roll the dice on this and say, well, let's just kind of see what happens with the state or the county. Because last time the state and the county led us to a shutdown. And then they did it again. And then they opened too soon before we had herd immunity. And then we're doing it again. So no, I don't listen to bureaucrats who don't know what they're doing. Okay? I try to listen to our inner circle who seems to have a pretty good grasp on everything. But we need to do a little bit more to make sure we can keep our kids in school.
Okay.
Well,
well, let's go around. Mr. Raymer.
I'd like to further add on to what Mr. Margot said. I'd like to say that I fully agree, and also adding on to, I believe, what Ms. Walker-Schuman touched on earlier, and something that Ms. Castanon said during public comment is that the California Department of Public Health mandated that, or I believe allowed districts to mandate that all teachers and staff either be vaccinated or have weekly testing. And I don't think it's fair to say that our teachers have to do it to both keep themselves safe and their classes safe, while not making it so that the students do the same, because the teachers also must remain as safe as the students to ensure that this education in person can continue. On the topic of logging in through Zoom, I think one of the biggest issues with hybrid in the past has been that the students in person were also relegated to logging in through Zoom and essentially doing the class virtually, which is not what we want. We want people in person because the education quality is better. So I think we'd have to rethink the hybrid system if we were to say, if you do not want to get vaccinated, please, we will set you up at home. And I think possibly setting up a camera at the back of the classroom and having them just watch the live instruction is the best way to go about that, because that does not affect the people who are vaccinated, who are in person. That allows them to maintain that same quality of in-person instruction that they came back for, and it allows the other people to still receive an education from home while not hindering the success and the quality of the education for the people in person. So I'd say mandating vaccines is something that we should really get underway with those who are 16 and older, and the mandatory testing for those who are not. We also then have to shift our past hybrid models to be more effective for those students who are in person, who have decided to get vaccinated and test if they are eligible.
Dr. Stern.
I definitely think that most people, if not all of us, are in the consensus that mandatory testing has to happen. Now, all tests of any type that are measuring anything have some degree of error. That's just the way it is. There is no perfect test, no perfect blood test, nothing. But just like, and sorry to use a morbid example, but just like with the HIV virus, testing used to be, I think, 6-month window, and now, they can test you within a short amount of time. Testing evolves, and it is the only thing on our side that I think can lead to logical and helpful courses of action. I personally, I agree with Ms. Marcus that I stop short of mandating at this time, and this is it's an evolving situation. While I myself am vaccinated and my children are, I stop short of mandating a vaccine at this time. I think that even though the FDA has indeed given approval for Pfizer for 16 and up, as one of the callers did say in public comment, which I had also heard, that it lacks the 6 to 10, 12 years of, beta testing that is common with most drugs. I'm not saying that I feel there's any risk whatsoever in these vaccinations. I'm very comfortable that I was vaccinated, and the people I love most on this planet were vaccinated. But I think that at this point, for me, what I feel strongly about is mandatory testing, because it's a logical thing to do. It takes out the issue that I was speaking about, in which people aren't good self-reporters sometimes, and the testing is one way that we can bypass that difficulty. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Margie, you had a chance to come at that, so I'm going to go on to Mrs. Wells, okay?
Okay. Well, I agree. I believe that the testing, we need to increase our testing. And right now we already have mandatory testing when students are a close contact. And so it's really about expanding our testing. And when we think about mandatory testing and are keeping it in parity with our teachers, if our teachers have mandatory testing, but those who do not, mandatory vaccines, but those that do not get vaccinated instead have more testing, I would be comfortable with looking at that for our student population. So students that are vaccinated would be undergo testing, and students that are not vaccinated would undergo more frequent testing like we are doing with our teachers. And in that sense, we could do that now. And it's in parity with what our teachers and staff are doing. And I'm comfortable with that because of the fact that they can also be unvaccinated but undergo more testing. And I would like to look at that. I don't think that legally we can mandate testing even at this point with the FDA approval of 16 and up. And I'm not sure that I want to take away the focus of this district in dealing with what lawsuits and distractions will come from that when we can also provide the option that we're providing with the teachers and have it be in parity there. And I also believe that, and I brought this up earlier, with regards to students that are close contacts who get a negative test and are allowed to go back into school, because as Tristan and others have mentioned, you can test one day negative and then later you can be positive. I do think that those students that return back to school, even if they're vaccinated and have a negative test, if they've been a close contact and we know they've had exposure, they should test again, like the students that are staying at home. They can test on day 5 and as a second test, just to be sure that later it doesn't show up. And I would add that in as well for that measure. But I would like to look at the possibility of doing something similar to what is happening with our staff and teachers.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
I mean, some good ideas I think have been thrown out. I think we need to start with the testing, but I think it needs to be really universal. You can't tell if someone is asymptomatic and positive, and are we going to ask? I mean, I guess we're getting some proof of vaccine from some kids, but it's only when there's been exposure that we're asking if they have been vaccinated or unvaccinated to determine which path they go down, whether it's another test or quarantine or if they can go back to class. I mean, I think we can make things unnecessarily complicated, or we can try to just be broad to make sure that we have the most positive impact, I think, right out the starting gate. And that really is what I think district-wide compulsory testing looks like. And then regular ongoing testing. I think what Mary was talking about was, these kids that have been a close contact, we don't know, yes, they have a negative test to go back to class, but we don't know 3 days later or 5 days later if they're still negative. There's no hard and fast information or data that supports saying that it's X amount of days between contact and when you develop symptoms. It's a very broad range. So just because we test kids and they have a negative test and we send them back to class, that doesn't mean that's the end of that story and they don't develop symptoms or a positive result days later. I think we just need to be, this for me is about being proactive and taking prophylactic steps so that we can avoid a disaster. That is what the goal for me is. And the most logical way for me, when I think about how do we affect keeping the schools open and protecting all our students and staff in this environment, that looks like compulsory testing. It's easy enough to do. It's not mandating the vaccine that will violate someone's, whatever personal preference. It's a very simple way of trying to identify who it is that it could be a vector of spread and who is not. And then saying, okay, so this group that is positive, you guys go in quarantine. We're going to try and maintain the healthy, status quo of the Petri dish for a little while. And while we're talking about younger kids, yes, younger kids, we have to focus on them too, but if you look at the cases in the district, it's not the younger kids, it's the high school kids. So 16 and up would be, I think, super effective if we were to mandate vaccines. I think that's really where we're seeing the most spread, given our current numbers. That doesn't mean it's always going to stay there, but I think that's kind of, I think that's compelling. And I will add a couple other things. I have a couple facts that I need to pull up, so just give me a minute here. Okay, here we are. To dispel some rumors, and this comes from my own children's pediatrician. There is no link to the COVID vaccine and menstrual changes in infertility. None. Boys and men, there is a link to COVID disease causing infertility, not the vaccine, the actual disease. The chance of myocarditis from the COVID disease is 1 in 40. The chance of myocarditis from the vaccine is 1 in 20,000. I mean, the data is on our side. This vaccine has actually been studied more than any other vaccine in history. You don't need to go by the number of years. You need to go by the number of studies. You need to go by the amount of evaluation. I get that it's new and I get that it's scary. What I don't get is people saying, oh, I don't know what's in it. You name me one person that can tell me what's in the MMR shot that all of our kids had as they were growing up. I'd really love to know if someone can name for me the ingredients in a Twinkie, like Noah was talking about earlier. We're willing to put those things in our body, or fast food, or things from McDonald's. I mean, give me a break. We're talking about a public health crisis. We have to be proactive in this. There's no reason why we can't be. We did it when we shut down the district to start out. We were the second in the state to do that. We had the foresight. We were among the first to have an agreement with our teachers to do synchronous live instruction. We were one of the first public school districts to go back to full-time in-person learning. We've been at the forefront of this the entire time. Now is not the time to take a step back and say, well, we're going to just wait and see. Wait and see. We're going to end up getting shut down. That's what I think.
I mean, I just want to say I disagree that the vaccine is our strongest tool to combat the virus, like I said. And from a public health standpoint, I absolutely believe that we should all be getting vaccinated. I think the question becomes when we are trying to focus on the school and keeping the school open and keeping the school safe and taking into account our community, I think it's not as clear cut. I do think that, having the FDA approval is important for mandating vaccines. I wouldn't mandate the vaccine without the FDA approval. I just wouldn't feel comfortable mandating that onto families for the variety of reasons that they have expressed. And I think one way to address that as well, as I mentioned earlier, is education and relaying that information and allowing people to talk about that and get to a place where they have an understanding of where we're at. I think, from the time that COVID has started, testing has changed. Information about the vaccine and information about the virus has changed. And it's really about bringing everybody up and making everybody current. For us, I think we get a lot of information, but not everybody has that information or has it in their minds as well as many of us do. And sometimes I think we forget that education piece is really important, and making the vaccine accessible again is really important. But yes, in an ideal world, I think it would be great if everyone would get vaccinated. It's so important for our world and public health that I really advocate for that. But I just do think that we have to take into consideration some other factors from a legal standpoint, as well as our community and providing those options. And I think that, there's different steps we can take as well, where we can make a lot of impact on going back to keeping things even safer in the other areas that we spoke about in terms of testing, which I absolutely am comfortable with, and having more testing and regular testing, as well as looking at increasing the use of masks and social distancing. I really think that matters a lot.
Okay,
I did want to remind something, just something Ms. Wells said. It was the vaccine in the first place that let us get back to school in the spring and even start school in the fall, even though we know it's under these circumstances. And that people who kind of poo-poo the vaccine and its relation to schools and businesses for the most part, and let's say the world economy, let's throw that in there if we're really studying the importance of the vaccine, is if it weren't for the vaccine, this would be a whole different planet at this point. I'll say that. A lot more people would be home still than in the hospitals, but that's why I jump on the opportunity to say if we can mandate it for 16 and up, that should be a no-brainer for us. And Eli, to your point about changing the way we deliver virtual instruction, I've been banging that drum for a few weeks now, so you and I can talk offline, but I absolutely agree with that.
Okay.
I agree too.
I think we've pretty well had quite a very good discussion here, Dr. Breggy and board members. I'd like to just make a we've had, it's given us all a lot of thought. Everybody's ideas have been able to be expressed. I think that's been a very good discussion. I would like to say that if we're going to take steps, and if we should take steps, we need to make them known. We can't sit back and really wait. If we're going to do something, either we're going to test or we're not going to test. Either we're going to vaccinate or we can't. We can't sit here in the middle and decide. I think we need to make some kind of action and take a step in one direction or the other. And I'm as far as that goes. So my question to you, Dr. Brigg, is where do we go from here?
Well, most importantly, we as a cabinet need to be able to begin to prepare some policy for the district. So, right now, as it's been talked about, the layers of protection that we're providing are the ones that we have to. And so this is going above and beyond. So it's about creating some policy, whether it's about the compulsory testing for students or for mandated vaccines for students. We need to get going on the policy writing of that so that we can bring that back to the Board of Education.
Any other?
From what I heard tonight, there seems to be a majority support for the testing, and so far not a support for the mandated vaccine for 16 and up. Is that how everybody reads it?
Well, I think there's it's a sort of a warm area. For testing, it's hot. It's really, let's do, that type of thing. But the vaccination is a little on the warmer side.
And just as a reminder, this is a discussion item. So this is providing us with direction so that we can begin to work on, what that policy would look like and then bring that back.
So in order to make the direction clear, President Marcus, can we say that we are giving staff direction to bring back policy related to testing, mandatory testing?
I think that's a safe way to put it, yes.
Okay, and to my understanding, we do not have 3 members. Unfortunately, Eli, would love to have you on this one, but we do not have 3 for mandatory vaccine for 16 and up right now.
Well, I would
consider not necessarily. People can change their minds, and in the next, with what's happening very quickly, it could change.
I'd like to
in order to give direction, we're not giving direction on the vaccine.
I'd like to.
I think we should.
I'd like to.
We don't have 3.
No, but we can ask for it to be on the next agenda, and that gives us another 2 weeks to continue having discussions and to be able to move all our positions, and maybe in 2 weeks we'll have 3.
That's
Right.
Interest, and I'm saying I'm giving staff direction tonight regarding the vaccine. Of course, you should put that on the agenda.
Well, I would just like to say I am open to having mandated vaccines. I just feel like we need to have a better understanding of what that means for us from a legal standpoint and liability standpoint. So I would be open to having direction to understand it. Yeah, I'd like to understand that and how we can do it in a way that, is something that as a district we are legally able to do.
would take any step forward.
For 16 and above.
Okay.
Can I just say quickly, if we were to mandate vaccines, it sounds like right, we're in agreement. It would only be 16 and older. I'm asking perhaps Dustin or Wade about what percentage roughly of the whole school population is 16 and 17, 18 years old? Maybe what, 10%? I'm just saying.
No, probably more than that.
You think more than that?
It's more than that.
More than that? Okay. 30, 25, 30%? I guess what I'm saying is we still cannot mandate for the majority of our students. So let's look at this point what we can do for the entire population. And to me, personally, what feels safe is to mandate the testing. I mean, I reserve the right to say that since this is a rapidly evolving situation, things could change, in my opinion, could change, as could all of ours. But I think we all feel at this time testing is just something that has to be done. I'll stop there.
Yeah, Mandy, we all agree on that. I absolutely, you're right, and I totally respect your opinion. But I think there's at least 3 of us to ask staff to bring back some, look at policy and legality about mandating it. We don't have to implement it yet, but we want to get the ball rolling. Is it fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair to understand what the implications are.
May I ask
That's
a
why
quick
I asked,
question
Where do we
first?
go from here?
May I say something first? An idea that I had is that, Dr. Breggy, please clarify if I'm wrong in this, but asking for the preparation of policy would mean that that policy would then be brought to a meeting for review, and then we could take steps from there. I don't mean to put too much of a burden on district administration, but would it be would it be out of the realm of possibility to prepare policy for both testing and mandatory vaccinations, even if the board is not willing to accept mandatory vaccinations at this time, but to have the policy prepared in the event that we may want to at the next meeting, and possibly just for review to see what kind of steps you would like to take in that regard?
Yeah, so I mean, we work under the direction of our Board of Education, and I always am so thankful that we're included in our recommendations as well. So I'm always thankful for that. But that is something that will take some time to put together. But of course, we would have to bring that back, and we would have to get some public input. And it's somewhat slow because, as I mentioned, as I opened this conversation, is we don't have the opportunity, every day to just get into a meeting room and talk about this. So that gives us some time to begin to develop whatever, if it's both testing and mandated vaccines. We as a cabinet will work with legal to, start to look to see what that looks like.
I would also say that the timing of it, so, taking into consideration timing, and so that may put a different light on, for example, mandatory vaccines and how we would look at that. So I'd throw that out there as well.
Great.
Okay, well, very strong discussion, very productive, I think, in a certain way. Though we didn't come to a lot of consensus, we had a lot of opinions and a lot of suggestions, and I think it was a good discussion.
Well, I would say that there is a consensus that if it was possible, I think everybody sitting up here has expressed that getting vaccinated is, in the perfect world, the ideal situation. And I think we have consensus there. It's about how do we mandate that, or can we mandate that? But I do want to acknowledge that the consensus sitting here and what I'm hearing is that everybody up here believes very strongly in the effectiveness of the vaccine and allowing us to keep our schools open safely.
I think there's no doubt that we're all in agreement that what's it going to take to keep our schools safe and our kids in the school. We all feel that way. And I would never argue with that statement at all.
Before we wrap up, Dr. Breggy, I'd also like to ask if we could get some information on bringing back a vaccine clinic for our 12 and up students. If any other parents have decided they want to bring their 12-year-olds, I would love for another opportunity for our kids to be able to come and take advantage of that.
Yep.
I agree. And I think you can maybe even reach out to, I don't know, Mickey Fine as well. They're doing a pretty big program, and maybe they would partner.
Yeah, that the partnership piece will not be a problem. We know just about everybody in the county now by first name. So
I think that's a great thing to do right away.
Okay. All right, so it's time then for our board comments. Mr. Raymer, have you got some words of wisdom for us tonight?
I wouldn't call it exactly wisdom. Actually, some people might. I would like to say and remind everyone to please keep wearing your masks when you are indoors and outdoors when possible, just to ensure everyone gets safe, stays safe. And I also cannot urge you enough to go and get vaccinated if you are indeed eligible. Although the district may not be mandating it now, you have the opportunity to go do so. So I would say go and do it. Finally, just a big thank you to our KBEV group, who's always back there running the cameras and the sound on these meetings. They do such amazing work, so I wanted to recognize them for that. But yeah, stay safe, everyone, and congratulations on completing your first week of this school year.
I want to say, thank you. I want to say that after completing the first week of school, it's still, despite the, everyone is abuzz with, who's being tested and who might have it and whatever. But I am so pleasantly surprised that the morale at the school, as far as I can tell, and I'm in touch with a lot of different members, the morale remains very high. Kids are happy to be back. I mean, there's no two ways about it. They are happy to be back. Some of the psychological crises and threat assessments I personally had to do regarding students in danger from mental health, which I saw about 8 to 12 months ago, I'm seeing a fraction of those. I'm talking about globally in the LA metro area. And it's not problem free, and I know that we're still trying to figure this stuff out, but I just want to say I just see such morale with the kids that are going to school, and they're very happy to be back by and large, and that really, really thrills me. So let's keep on with the fight, and we had a great discussion tonight, and I want to thank the whole community for all the work and thought with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Margot.
Thank you. Thank you, staff, administration, KBEV, not there personally tonight, but thank you guys. And I'm going to sound like a broken record for a while, but I'm going to beat this drum about food services, about what we feed our kids, and that as country as a whole, we do not take this seriously, and it's time to start taking it seriously. And like everything else we can try to be the leader of, we can be a leading school district in changing nutrition and changing how we view that and what we do with that. So have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Mrs. Wells.
Well, I would say yes. I think it's been a really great first week, and I have heard so much excitement from so many parents, and it is truly wonderful to be back in school in person, and I think that's what we're all trying to protect. And I really just want to remind everybody to keep an open mind and to remain flexible. I think we last year really had to get flexible. Everybody had to really stretch, and that's going to pay off now. And I think that we have to remember that we have to be able to, be able to make changes and to be flexible and to react quickly and to make those changes. And I think we're ready to do that, and we have a lot of resources in place and infrastructure in place that we didn't have before, and that puts us in a far better position this year, and we should all recognize that and take advantage of it as well, including bringing up the technology that we have and the ability that we have to use that technology to help us deliver the best education for all of our students. And it's really important to me that's our focus this year, is to keep the schools safe and deliver quality education. Thank you.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Oh, this is related, but kind of separate. Misinformation is a really dangerous thing, and we are seeing so much of it. We have seen so much of it, and it just keeps going. I would encourage everyone, if you have questions about the vaccine, if you have questions about COVID, please talk to your doctor. Don't talk to your neighbors, don't talk to your lawyer, don't talk to your friend down the street who's an accountant. Talk to your doctor. We can't be taking medical advice from non-medical professionals. It's just irresponsible. Go to your pediatrician, go to your doctor, have those conversations one-on-one. Let's stop utilizing the public square as armchair research for virologists and experts in things that we're really not experts in. It's just not helpful to the community, to the public health crisis, and to keeping kids in school healthy and teachers and staff and faculty in school healthy and in person. So I just, please go to your experts, go to your doctors, ask questions that you have, and stop listening to the public square chatter. It's just not helpful.
I'd just like to comment on the wonderful discussion that we had tonight for this whole thing, the way it went down. I appreciate hearing everybody's point of view, and that's the point I'm making about, is that to have an open mind and to hear what other people are thinking, so that you can understand where they might be coming from. I enjoy hearing everybody's comments and where they're coming from and so on. And I would hope that people that don't feel the way I feel will at least put themselves in somebody else's shoes to see where they're coming from. I would love also to make one little comment that right now it's not very germane right now, but this week I attended, or a week ago, something about good school board meetings. And I think Dr. Stern, you were there with me. And I have to tell you, as I watched that presentation, and I think Dr. Breggy, you were there also, I kept thinking to myself, this isn't Beverly Hills. This isn't the kind of community we have. We have a community that's respectful, that doesn't shout out, doesn't, say things to people that whatever. And I was really, as I thought about it, I thought we really have a very effective school board. And I was very pleased to think that I came away feeling that I didn't need that. I mean, I saw it, but I couldn't believe that that's what existed in some communities. It was really, I think, Dr. Stern, you saw it, and you saw what I'm talking about. So I'd like to talk about the fact that I really think that we have very productive meetings, and that they do go somewhere, and that everybody does get a chance to express what they want to say, and nobody is putting anybody else down. So for that, I'm very appreciative. And with that, I'm going to, Dr. Breggy, do you have anything last words you would like to say?
I'll just kind of end with this, because I think it's important to end on a more educational note. And I do want to, again, give a shout out to our staff. We've heard over and over how students are happy to be back, and that's absolutely true. Our staff is so happy to be back. And they are advocating for the same things that we are up here. So I feel like we've been having these conversations for a long time, and it's kind of nice to know that, we're in alignment. That our staff would like the same thing for us. And, between positive cases and the close contacts, that's 172 disruptions in 8 days. And so my email's already going crazy, and I already had thousands of emails in there. But depending, no matter where you are and what side you're on, is in 8 days, we've had 172 disruptions in our classrooms. And that's not just those, it's disruptive to the entire class. So our responsibility is to mitigate those disruptions and get back to what we're supposed to be doing, and that's providing a high quality education. And you can't do that in an environment where you keep pulling kids in and out of classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I am going to adjourn the meeting. It's 8:45. I would like to remind everybody that our next meeting will be September 14th. Same situation. We will be meeting teleconferencing, but we will be meeting in person with the administration and the board at Cherney Hall. So thank you again for attending, and have a safe, pleasant 2 weeks.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.